current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle. We deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award-winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award-winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award-winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa. We're broadcasting live from our Johannesburg studios on www.channelafrica.co.za, on SABC Plus, and on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. My name is Asanda, Beda.
And I'm Peter Ndoro. A very good morning to you. It's the Wednesday edition of the program, and it is the 16th of July. Wow, middle of the year. But thanks for tuning in, and we've got lots on the program today. We'll give you more details about that, but something that's in the news that caught our attention. Nigeria's former president, Muhammadu Buhari, was laid to rest yesterday, and South Africa and Tunisia have signed new agreements to deepen relations and collaborations in science, technology, and innovation. We'll have a little bit more on those stories and others after the news, as we say good morning to Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
To our listeners, Nigeria's former president Muhammadu Buhari has been buried at his home in northern Nigeria. This is 2 days after his death at the age of 82 at a clinic in London. His body was flown back to the country yesterday, and his successor Bola Tinubu was at the airport in Katsina State to receive the remains. It was then taken to Buhari's hometown of Dawura, where hundreds were attending. The Islamic funeral prayers were held at the Central Mosque. Buhari ruled Africa's most populous nation between 2015 and 2023 and died in a London hospital on Sunday after an undisclosed illness. South Africa's National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola has confirmed that the Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection, Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya, has been placed on leave. This is pending investigations into claims by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Sibiya is alleged to have links to criminal syndicates that have infiltrated the South African police service, including controversial tenderpreneur Vusimuzi Kat Matlala. General Fani Masemola spoke to the media.
When I asked him to stay home while they were saying that I'm doing general investigation. The general investigation will determine as to what next course of action will be taken. I can't be end probably the investigation and say no, there's nothing, come back and then.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has meanwhile appointed Mineral and Petroleum Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe as the acting Minister of Police until Professor Feroz Kachali assumes the position from the 1st of August. Presidency spokesperson Vincent Magwenya says Mantashe will still retain his responsibilities as Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources. A 54-year-old Mozambique national has been sentenced to 15 years in prison by the Tlhabane Regional Court in the South African Northwest Province. John Sithole was found guilty of tampering with essential infrastructure. Provincial NPA spokesperson Sivenati Gunya says Sithole was arrested in February after being found in possession of stolen copper cables inside the premises of a local mine. The U.S. President Donald Trump has defended his Attorney General Pam Bondi and said it was up to her to release any more records related to the convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The U.S. President has faced growing criticism over his handling of the case. The BBC's Thomas Burker explains.
Pam Bondi has been under fire by some of President Trump's political base since she decided not to release additional files on the Epstein case. But many among the MAGA faithful hold the belief that lurid details are being held back to protect the rich and powerful. In a rare moment of friction between the president and his loyalists, influential allies are now calling for more transparency. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, said everything should be made public and the people should decide. Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of Mr. Trump's staunchest supporters, said leaders should keep their promises.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective. SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, coach Rassie Erasmus makes 10 changes to the team that will face off with Georgia in a once-off test match this coming Saturday, while Kaizer Chiefs side, South African football side, beats PEC Zwolle in a pre-season match in the Netherlands last night. Details of these and other stories coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
And it's time now for the section of the program that we call the Africa Roundup. And here we take a concise look at news and events that took place in the last 24 hours to get you quickly up to date. And we do that through our reporters, analysts and experts that put those news events into context in a brief, concise manner. And we begin the Africa Roundup with this story in Nigeria, where former President Muhammadu Buhari was laid to rest on Tuesday at his private residence in Katsina State. The 82-year-old who led Africa's most populous country from 2015 to 2023 died on Sunday in a London hospital after a brief illness. His burial drew crowds of mourners, some climbing trees for a final glimpse of the late leader.
A solemn moment as Nigerians bid farewell to former President Muhammadu Buhari, who led the country from 2015 to 2023. He also had a short stint as a military ruler in the 80s at the height of military coups in Abuja. Mourners converged outside his residence in Ndoro.
Thank you all Nigerians, and I'm appealing for all Nigerians to forgive Baba, whoever is having any grief for him.
But Buhari's passing was bound to be divisive, like any powerful figure.
If he had died about 3 years ago, I think it would have been better. Dying now, I don't see anything good in it. If he had died about 3 years ago, maybe Osinbajo would have taken over it, and then it would have been a good choice for the country.
The medical charity Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, has said Ethiopian federal forces executed 3 of its staff during the war in the northern region of Tigray. A report following the charity's own review of the incident suggests the 3 were killed intentionally. The BBC's Anne Soy reports.
MSF's review found that their staff members were killed intentionally at point-blank range and while facing their attackers. The charity says the team had shared in writing the route they were going to use ahead of time with the different actors in the war as per procedure in conflict zones, and there had been agreement from all sides. They were wearing MSF vests with the charity's logo visible, and their vehicle had the agency's flag and logos on both sides. It also reviewed evidence, it says, placed the national forces at the scene of the killings. MSF is calling for accountability.
South Africa and Tunisia are strengthening ties in science and innovation. A new bilateral strategy was signed during a visit by South Africa's Minister of Science and Innovation, Dr. Beda Nzimande. And this agreement aims to boost joint research, skills development and knowledge exchange. Veli Mbele, the minister's spokesperson, explains.
The signing of this partnership builds on existing science, technology and innovation cooperation between South Africa and Tunisia and further enables the two countries to intensify the development of sustainable solutions to address old and emerging continental challenges such as youth unemployment and skills development, healthcare, food sovereignty, water and energy security, climate change, and biodiversity laws, and digital transformation.
The inaugural Invest Zambia International Conference kicks off today in Lusaka, bringing together over 2,000 delegates to explore opportunities across key sectors. ZDA has praised President Hichilema's efforts to position Zambia as a top global investment destination. Dorothy Tembo from the International Trade Center has more.
It is really about ensuring that all the different stakeholders are coming together, understanding what opportunities are there, but also using that opportunity to sell themselves, to be able to attract the investment that will allow the businesses to grow and be able to actually trade, but also through that you are generating the so much needed revenue that will also help in many other areas.
Researchers have shown the first interaction between plants and an animal based on the sound the plant makes. The BBC's Palab Ghosh has this report.
This is a sound Israeli researchers recorded in 2023 of a tomato plant gasping as a result of it being dehydrated. It's normally outside the range of human hearing, but the frequency has been adjusted to allow us to hear it. Their latest research shows that moths respond to the sound. The discovery opens up the possibility of an invisible ecosystem between plants and animals based on the secret sounds they make. Researchers will now investigate the sounds of different plants and whether other species make decisions based on them, such as whether to pollinate, hide inside, or eat the plant.
And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Africa Roundup. And we'll have more for you tomorrow after the 6 o'clock news. You are listening to Channel Africa's Rise and Shine, where we bring you the African perspective.
Africa at Play with NATO and ETO Chairman.
The Confederation of African Athletics, CAA President Mr. Hamad Kalkaba Malboum, talk to us about the state of athletics in Africa as it stands, and what picture are you looking at 5 years later?
Yeah, athletics in Africa is strong. We are able to organize our major events in time. Like this year, we will have the under-20 and under-18 African Championship in Nigeria. Next year, we will have the senior in Ghana. In 2027, we will go back to Algeria to organize the under-18 and under-20. And then 2028, we will have the senior championship in Gaborone in Botswana. Well, by this program, we can increase our performance. And at the same time, we are considering the fact that within the various federations, they are identifying young talent every year within the national program, within the scholarship championship. And so the athletics in Africa is in good standard.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
US President Donald Trump says that he remains hopeful that the hurdles to securing a ceasefire in Gaza can be resolved within the next week. This comes as negotiations between Hamas and Israel continue in Doha in Qatar, aimed at brokering a 60-day truce and potential hostage exchange. The timeline for a breakthrough remains uncertain. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has renewed his call for a lasting ceasefire so that it paves the way for a two-state solution. Sherwin Bryce-Peace picks up the story for us from New York.
As Israeli military operations continue to strike Gaza, killing dozens of Palestinians just over the last few days, the death toll passed yet another grim milestone. More than 58,000 and counting, as US-led mediation efforts along with Egypt and Qatar struggle to find compromises that could seal at least a temporary cessation of hostilities. This was President Trump last Wednesday.
We're getting very close to a deal. I don't know if it's secret or not secret, but it doesn't matter to me. Secret's fine if it gets us to where we want to be. We want to have a ceasefire. We want to have peace. We want to get the hostages back. And I think we're close to doing it.
While the latest US proposal stops short of guaranteeing a permanent end to the war, it does propose a 60-day pause in fighting during which a permanent end to the conflict would be negotiated. During this period, Hamas would be expected to hand over 10 living and 18 deceased hostages from the total of 50 still held, while Israeli forces would withdraw to a buffer zone along Gaza's borders with Israel and Egypt, allowing significant amounts of humanitarian aid to flow into the besieged enclave. Palestinian prisoners held by Israel would also be exchanged for the hostages. The United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio believes they are closer to a deal as the proximity talks in Doha grind on.
I think we're closer, and I think perhaps we're closer than we've been in quite a while, and we're hopeful. But we also recognize there's still some challenges in the way, and one of the fundamental challenges is Hamas's unwillingness to disarm, which would end this conflict immediately. If they just release the hostages, there shouldn't be a single hostage. There shouldn't be a single hostage body still left. If they release that and disarm, this would end. But that said, the Israelis have shown some flexibility here, and so I think we've seen progress made. So we're hopeful, but we also understand that these things have been difficult for a reason. But we're hopeful that they can move to proximity talks pretty quickly and go from there and have a ceasefire in place in the near future.
With both Israel and Hamas blaming the other for the lack of tangible progress on reaching an agreement. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking in Washington last week.
President Trump and I have a common goal. We want to achieve the release of our hostages. We want to end Hamas rule in Gaza. We want to make sure that Gaza does not pose a threat to Israel anymore. In pursuing this common goal, we have a common strategy. Not only do we have a common strategy, we have common tactics. This doesn't involve pressure, doesn't involve coercion, it involves full coordination. President Trump wants a deal, but not at any price. I want a deal, but not at any price. Israel has security requirements and other requirements, and we're working together to try to achieve it.
While the United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres again weighed in on the conflict Monday, calling the situation in Gaza horrific, and where they were witnessing a level of death and destruction that had no parallel in recent times.
We absolutely need a permanent ceasefire. And I hope that the parties are able to overcome, both parties are able to overcome the difficulties that they still find for that ceasefire to take place. But the ceasefire is not enough. It is essential that that ceasefire leads to a solution, and that solution can only be possible if both Palestinians and Israelis can have a state where they can exercise their rights. The idea, and that is why we are going to have in July one conference on the two-state solution, the idea that it would be possible to have 5 million people inside the country in their own land without any rights is something that is totally against humanity and totally against international law.
A joint statement by UN agencies, including the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, the World Food Programme and the World Health Organization, warned that fuel shortages in Gaza had reached critical levels, calling for fuel to be allowed into Gaza in sufficient quantities and consistently to sustain life-saving operations. I'm Shervin Bryce-Pease in New York.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
The second edition of the Africa Unlocked Conference took place in Cape Town, South Africa last week. This meeting gathered Africa's most influential business leaders, investors, policy makers and entrepreneurs under the theme Business Shaping Africa's Tomorrow. Building legacies, strengthening corporate governance in family businesses was among the key topics at this meeting. The session examined how financial institutions can help family enterprises build robust governance through structured financing and leadership advisory services. Tuto Ngobeni compiled this report.
Standard Bank invited clients from all parts of the African continent from across various sectors to take part in the second edition of the Africa Unlocked conference. Topics discussed at this event focused on advancing Africa's economic sovereignty and the role family businesses play in the economy, among others. Family businesses drive Africa's economy, creating jobs and generating wealth. However, challenges like succession planning, financial transparency, and management often impact their sustainability. During this discussion, experts shared strategies to merge tradition with modern governance, ensuring growth and stability for future generations. Keval Mehta, Executive Director at the Clearwater Group, spoke on the complexities of family businesses and how the family's teaching of younger generations can impact the business for generations.
I think the success around the halls is multi-generational. The complexity around family business and governance is really, once you get beyond, say, the first, second, and third, is you now have individuals that are no longer involved in the business. You have shareholders, so you have the delineation of responsibility between operators and shareholders. And in some cases, there may be no family members that are involved from an operational perspective. But how do you have alignment on strategy, ethics, and values, and that essentially governs the way in which you report and the way that you operate and that strategy going forward? And effectively, a lot of that boils down from a very early age. And so the way in which you behave as an elder has a reflection on the youth, and the way that you bring them up and the way that you converse and set those expectations has a material impact on the involvement around governance going forward.
Meanwhile, Guido Giachetti, Executive Chairman of the RDC Property Group, spoke on the relationship between the family and shareholders in steering the business.
The family can only do it through two avenues: the mission, the vision for the business, and the purpose. And that is really what we are imparting to our management, saying, this is our purpose. And in our case, it is to develop, to invest in strategic assets that add value to the communities. It's a very strong community value. And that community goes to shareholders and to the wider community in the country. And I was yesterday when the Vice President of Botswana recognized our contribution to the country, because we've managed to now grow to a strong Botswana. 75% of our assets of one of the listed company that was created with very little is now outside of the country and operates in many jurisdictions. So I think the family is really there to derive the purpose and the vision. And then it's up to management to make sure that they follow that.
Stefan Viljoen, head of Family Office Wealth and Investments at Standard Bank, highlighted the major role family-owned businesses play in Nigeria's economy.
Family-owned businesses, from multi-billion naira companies to street vendors, contribute to 50% of the GDP of Nigeria. They also employ 80% of the workforce. So it's a massive number in terms of the catalyst for economic growth for the nation.
For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongo Beni in Johannesburg.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Right, let's take a look now at, in detail, or focus rather, on West Africa and some of the news that's been playing out there. And of course, we usually have our political analyst and conflict resolution expert, Dr. David Matsanga, to explain some of the big events of the region. And I guess yesterday, Dr. Matsanga, as I say, good morning to you. Welcome to the program. The laying to rest of Muhammadu Buhari in Nigeria. And he's just, it's an interesting individual who has drawn mixed reaction.
Thank you very much, Peter. And I am unfortunate today. I am on a noisy place at the airport.
still looking for Africa's peace and to make Africa better. First of all, Buhari legacy is a legacy. He was an icon of repression, an icon of repression in Africa. His legacy was marked with abductions. His legacy was marked with kidnaps. His legacy was marked with terror activities, Boko Haram and the rest. So he has left no legacy at all. And we must be frank and speak frankly about the efforts everybody makes on planet Earth while we are still here. So Buhari left a legacy, a chartered legacy with so many bad things that there is nothing that I can celebrate about. No Nigerian should even celebrate about Buhari. He kidnapped Umar Diko. He kidnapped Namdi Khan. He rendition 10 men from southern Cameroon and delivered them to the girls of Paul Biya for life. So this is not a man whom people should celebrate about in Africa. And let's learn to be honest. If a leader has been a tyrant, killing people, slaughtering people, maiming people, when he dies, let's name it and say God will make the judgment.
Fascinating. Let's go to Ghana. Perhaps a more positive story, depending on the perspective one takes. The country's decision to use its prison service to produce furniture and school uniforms is being hailed as innovative by some and problematic by others. What's your take on this initiative, and what does it say about the resourcefulness or potential human rights issues in the region?
I think there is nothing like a human rights issues. Prisons are used to make good things. When you go to prison, you go to learn something new. You go to make redempt, change the behavior. So if there is a way they are teaching prisoners to make school uniforms, school desks, school everything for the schools, that is good. You are serving your time in a prison. What type of human rights are involved here? Nothing. Unless they are taking them underground and beating them and, leaving them without food and what. But when you make more chairs, you make schools, people educate, you are now redempting, a redemption strategy. It's part of the training. That's why sentences are imposed on people. So what you sit in the prison, in the hall, in the house, eat the food again without paying back to the society. That is all right. There's nothing like human rights abuses there.
Liberia has denied claims that it's agreed to receive undocumented migrants from the US. Why do you think this story is gaining so much traction, and what might be the implications of Liberia's relationship with Washington? And is it coincidental that this president of Liberia was in the White House just last week?
Yeah, a president of Liberia last week in Washington, in the White House, embarrassed. And he still says, yes, sir, to Trump. What a tragedy of African leaders. But anyhow, let's leave that story. But let me be very honest. Liberia is a country made of free slaves. And these were free slaves that were either failed to cross over to Atlantic or were removed from US and abroad. If you rekindle that, you are bringing memories of the past. So I think this was going to be a secret type of, of deportation that was going to take place. But I think journalism, the good journalism and the investigative journalism has done a great job. Peter, it is very bad to show Liberians a memory of how you were brought back, deported criminals were brought back. You remember Taylor was brought back, and Taylor ended up having so many difficulties with the law. So it is something that is Liberians don't want to think about, and they don't want to see in the 21st century today. people being brought back forcefully into their country.
Dr. Matsanga, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for making time for us, especially as you're en route on a voyage. Thank you so much indeed. Always great listening to you.
By the way, I'm going to London to file an application to expunge the name of Mr. Buhari from the order that was given by the UN for reparations against the 10 Naira, Cameroonians, southern Cameroonians who were deported, forcibly abducted from Abuja to Yaoundé and jailed for life. So I got an order. We got an order on that one, and we want to expunge his name and also make sure that his estate is not divided before they pay the money of 488 million pounds.
All right. We'll certainly want to talk to you about that a little bit more after your trip. Thanks so much indeed, Dr. Matsanga.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Peter.
you.
Always keep Africa working. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much. That's Dr. David Matsanga, one of our regular commentators, giving us an update on some of the issues in West Africa. He's a political analyst and conflict resolution expert, talking to us about this fascinating journey he's on, and we'll definitely catch up with him on that. Right now, though, let's find out and catch you up on what's been happening in the news as we go to the news headlines with Onelen Sinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari has been buried at his home in northern Nigeria. This is 2 days after his death at the age of 82 at a clinic in London. The South African Parliament's Police, Justice and Constitutional Development Portfolio Committee will meet today to discuss how to approach and process the allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Provincial Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. This after revelations by Mkhwanazi that the now removed Police Minister Senzo Mchunu is affiliated to persons linked to criminal activities. And Russian drones and missiles attacked a wide area of Ukraine in the early hours of this morning. In Ukraine's second city, at least 17 explosions were recorded in one attack lasting 20 minutes. Channel Africa News, I'm Onelen Sinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of sports. Here's Musibudi Makura with our news there.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Very good morning from the sports desk. Let's start with rugby news. So Springbok captain Siamthanda Kolisi will make his first appearance in the green and gold this season when the reigning Rugby World Cup champions face off with Georgia in Mbombela in South Africa's Mpumalanga province this coming Saturday. Kolisi missed the first 3 matches due to an injury and also returns to the loose trio, also featuring Peter Steph de Toy as well as Kobus Visa. Now, coach Rassie Erasmus also made about 10 changes to the starting 15 that played in the second test against Italy in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape province this past Saturday. It includes a front row of debutants with Juan Venter, Marnus van der Merwe, as well as Neethling Forshire earning their first caps. Now, their selection increases the number of newly capped players this season to about 7 players, while the inclusion of Kolisi as well as Venter means Rassie Erasmus has so far used 46 players in total this season. On to some cricket news now. The West Indies will seek the advice of legendary former players, that is Sir Viv Richards, Sir Clive Lloyd as well as Brian Lara, following the Test side's crushing defeat by Australia. They were bowled out for just 27 runs, the second lowest score in Test history and the worst since 1955, as they lost the third Test in Jamaica to succumb to a series clean sweep. In response, cricket, West Indies President Dr. Kishore Swalo has also now called for an emergency meeting to revive the series as well as the final match in particular, given the side's ongoing struggles with the bat. Richards, Lloyd as well as Lara, some of the greatest batsmen ever to have played the game according to Dr. Swalo, have been invited now to attend the meeting. The will also join fellow West Indies batting grades in Cheverine Chandapal as well as Desmond Hayes and the former fast bowler Ian Bradshaw, who already serves on the cricket strategy as well as officiating committee. Swalo insisted that the team is in a rebuilding phase as well as investment is being now made to reignite the spirit that has long made West Indies cricket a force in the world. On to football news now. Two-time champions, the Democratic Republic of Congo, have laid down a bold statement of intent ahead of the 2024 Total Energies African Nations Championship Chan tournament, officially unveiling a 36-man preliminary squad that will also target a historic third continental crown. The head coach of the side, Otis Ngoma, has assembled a star-studded home-based squad dominated by top clubs such as TP Mazembe, FC Lopopo, AS Manema Union, as well as AC Rangers, as the Leopards seek to relive their past Chan glories of 2009 as well as 2016. So with Chan 2024 set to be co-hosted by Kenya, Uganda, as well as Tanzania from the 2nd until the 30th of August, the DR Congo have been drawn in a fiercely competitive group. They are in Group A alongside the host nation Kenya, the two-time champions Morocco, Angola and Zambia, and what is dubbed also the Group of Death. Now the squad will also commence training in Kinshasa from the 16th up until the 20th of July before heading to Algeria for an intensive camp from the 21st until the 30th of July. Still on football news, Desiree Ellis, the head coach of the South African women's football team Banyana Banyana, says she was impressed with the team's quality display in their final group match against Mali. Now, this was after the South Africans secured a dominant 4-0 win just a few days ago over Mali. South Africa got off to a flyer with the player of the match, Lebogang Ramalepe, scoring the first goal in just the first 5 minutes. Ellis also admits that the team started slow in the two previous matches, and also as they were quite intentional in rectifying those mistakes from the two past matches.
It was a true team for performance, including the technical team. As I said, they worked tirelessly behind the scenes, trying to put things together, and today everything came together. But obviously, there's still room for improvement, but I thought today we did everything, better than what we've done in our previous 2 games.
And finally, University Sports South Africa President Jerry Laka believes the host nation Germany have provided the perfect environment for youth athletes to quickly settle into the FISU World University Games, which get underway later on today. Now, Team South Africa arrived in groups over the weekend with great hope to improve on the total 20-medal haul in Chengdu, China. Now, speaking from Essen, one of the host cities, Laka believes an update as the momentum builds up to this year's tournament officially getting underway later on today.
Yeah, I must say that we traveled very well with the different groups that have already arrived in Germany. I must say that our GDM did a very great job in as far as the logistical arrangement of the traveling for the teams to arrive in Germany. The fencing arrived safely, basketball, the tennis, and I must say that we are settling in very well. Currently, we are at the fencing practice sessions. I went to the tennis earlier on in the morning. Our student athletes are really getting ready to prepare themselves for the final stages of the competition.
Right, so that concludes your sports news this hour. There'll be more sporting updates in the second hour of Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Right, if you want to know what's been happening in the world of business, then listen up, because we have at the business desk this morning, Buntle Hedbush. Good morning.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Peter, and a very good morning to our listeners this morning. In our top business story at this hour, the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development says it expects that the growth of the 15-member Economic Community of West African States Regional Bloc, ECOWAS, will inch down to 5% this year from 5.1% last year. The bank has linked this decline to the U.S. tariffs, as well as to the duties being imposed on it in Africa following the decision of 3 of its members to set up a rival alliance. The new bloc, known as the Alliance of Sahel States, includes Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, and has imposed taxes on goods from the rest of ECOWAS. Mining production in South Africa improved marginally in May following 5 months of consecutive decline. Data released by Statistics South Africa shows that production in the sector jumped up by 0.2% in May on a year-on-year basis, compared to a 7.7% decrease in the previous month. The sector recorded a 3.7% increase in the same period on a month-on-month basis, with the largest positive contribution coming from iron ore. The acting port manager in Durban, South Africa, Ngombozi Ben Mazwi, says they've spent more than $106 million on improving infrastructure in the country's busiest port over the past few years. This includes replacing cranes and other container handling equipment that have reached the end of their lifespan. This comes after the port experienced a huge backlog at the end of 2023, which continued into January last year. Ben Mazwi says this is part of the port's recovery program aimed at rectifying the lack of maintenance over many years. He says the Bayhead Road, which handles over 13,000 container-carrying trucks every 12 hours, is also undergoing maintenance.
Currently, as we speak, we're busy with the Bayhead Road. The Bayhead Road, as you'll know, it is the artery of all the trucks that are going to the DCT, Durban Container Terminal, where most of our container volumes are based. So with that, you'll notice as well from a TPT point of view, as well the landlord as TNPA at the Port of Durban, we've got one of our terminal operators, which is TPT as well, putting a lot of equipment as well, buying equipment like straddle carriers to try to improve the turnaround of the vessels.
Morocco's economic growth is likely to slow down to 4% next year from the 4.4% expected. The country's official statistics agency, HCP, says this is because of global trade uncertainties. The forecast was based on assumptions of an average wheat harvest and a drop in foreign demand for Moroccan goods. The statistics agency said domestic demand continues to drive imports, contributing to the widening of the current account deficit, which is seen at 1.9% of gross domestic product in 2026, up from 1.8% in 2025. Now, moving further afield, the United States has said it will launch an investigation into possible unfair trade practices by Brazil. Relations between Washington and Brazil's left-wing government have deteriorated since President Trump took office. The BBC's Katie Silver has more details.
We've heard from the US Trade Representative Jamison Greer saying that they're going to be looking into Brazil's attacks on American social media companies and what they called unfair trade practices that harm American companies, workers, farmers and technology innovators. Now, certain things that we know that they're going to look into are things like digital payments, electronic payment systems, digital trade, access for US ethanol into the Brazilian market. It's all under what's known as Section 301, so it's different from those reciprocal tariffs. In terms of procedure, what happens now is we see this consultation period. We understand in September they'll make a decision.
And now for our first look at the financial indicators this morning, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,529 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 24. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 58. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 5. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 56. Russia, 78 rubles 1. India, it's 85 rupees 90. China, 7 yuan 17. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 86 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,333 per ounce and platinum at $1,403 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil at this hour is at $68.88 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
Did you know that South Africa is hosting the G20 on African soil for the first time ever, a historic milestone for the continent? Even more remarkable is the creation of Township 20, a new G20 engagement group focused on bringing township economies into the global conversation. It's a bold move to spotlight grassroots innovation and attract investment to historically marginalized communities, a truly African twist on global policy making. So that's our G20 fact for this morning, the 16th of July.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
The South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC Sport, brings you Chasing the Sun, and that's a powerful 5-part documentary series about South Africa's national rugby team, the Springboks, and it tells a rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup 2019, starting the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. Central Africa time on SABC2. You can tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. And you can also stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere, and no subscription needed. So don't miss Chasing the Sun. That's this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African time on SABC2. And make sure to be there when history shines.
This Mandela Month, we honor his belief that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world.
Education is one of the most important weapons in a country.
Catch us on DSTV Bouquet 802. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9 Central African time on Channel Africa.
In South Africa's economic hub, Johannesburg, hundreds of drivers working for Uber and other ride-hailing services staged a protest outside the company's local headquarters. The drivers are demanding urgent changes to the way that their earnings are calculated, saying that recent adjustments to commission fees and trip pricing have made it difficult to earn a living. They've also raised broader concerns about working conditions and a lack of dialogue with the company. Sashin Naidu picks up the story for us.
E-hailing operations were partly halted in Johannesburg this morning as scores of operators and drivers parked off their vehicles and embarked on a protest at Uber's head office in Parktown. The operators claim that they are being manipulated by the company and are being robbed of their hard-earned commission that is due to them. They say that some e-hailing companies, including Uber, are now taking almost 50% of their earnings from each trip. Uber driver Awelani Mashete says this is a drastic increase as compared to the initial 25% that they had initially agreed to.
We are having a problem with the price, the price that they are doing now. Uber South Africa is using a dynamic pricing, which they take a lot of commission, and then the Uber drivers are getting less in their net pay and then in their pay. So it means if you take a trip, them, instead of taking 25% fee, which we all know, and those who started Uber, they have cleared on, it's not longer that 25, it's 48 to 50%, meaning that you go half-half with the Uber now.
The E-Hailing Partners Council alleges Uber's decision to increase the commission taken from operators and drivers is having an extremely negative impact on their take-home salaries. Spokesperson Zisco Mguni.
Bolt and Uber now, the transporting prices are very low, but when it comes to a commission, it's become 50-50 between owners and the driver. So now the commission is very high, and compared to the money that we are being paid by the passengers, the money is low, and then the commission is very high, and the petrol as well. At least if they can drop their commission maybe to go to 20%, and then it will meet us as drivers, it is better than what they are doing.
Another concerned driver, Angie Lebele, who was part of the meeting with Uber yesterday, says they are still waiting for a formal response as to how they are going to deal with the situation. She says that if their demands are not met, they will intensify their protests.
They told us that we are minor and it's a small issue. So we are here today and we're not going to stop. The struggle is going to continue because it's even affecting our health, our mental health, our physical health. So this must come to an end because they take money from us. It's SARS money. Where is that money going? When you go to SARS, SARS doesn't know anything about you. SARS doesn't know anything about money deducted from you. So this must come to an end.
Uber management is yet to comment or release a statement on the matter. Sasha Naidu, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
In South Africa, a new audit conducted in 300 schools in the Gauteng province has uncovered a sanitation crisis. The report reveals that more than 90% of school toilets are unsafe or unusable due to poor hygiene and lack of basic supplies. In response, toilet paper brand Baby Soft and cleaning detergent company Domestos, as well as the Department of Basic Education in South Africa, have launched the Unstoppable Together campaign to improve school sanitation in the province. Our reporter Lebogang Mabange has more.
The term toilet loss is being used to describe the deteriorating state of school toilets in the Gauteng province. According to Baby Soft marketing manager Patrick Bukasa, the issue stems not only from infrastructure challenges but from a lack of ongoing maintenance.
Toilet loss is what happens when we don't invest in proper cleaning and maintenance of toilets, whether new or already existing. The toilets quickly then become dirty, damaged and unusable. This is also called toilets wasted through neglect. When properly taken care of, the investment made in building new toilets is secured for many years to come. Whether schools build new toilets themselves using their own funds, or whether the Department of Basic Education pays for the construction of the toilets, or whether they are built by brands such as Baby Soft.
The audit results paint a concerning picture. Bukasa says very few schools met even the most basic standards of sanitation, putting learners' health and dignity at risk.
Some of the findings from this year's Gauteng school audit showed that only 6.5% of toilet cubicles met all basic sanitation criteria and could be considered fully functional, while 27% of the toilets showed visible feces and urine. Then 22% had an unacceptable odor. We also saw that only 15% of the toilet blocks had toilet paper available and 50% had no soap, which is really very risky for, children's health. We also saw that 69% of the toilets had no dustbins available, and dustbins are a simple yet vital item for hygiene and dignity.
As part of the Unstoppable Together campaign, 300 schools in the Gauteng province will receive targeted support from sanitation training to cleaning supplies.
Through the Unstoppable Together campaign, we aim to deliver targeted support to all 300 participating schools through a range of interventions. These include training for both the school cleaners and school management on sanitation best practices, as well as the distribution of essential supplies such as cleaning kits, which will include, gloves and dustbins, brooms, mops, and other cleaning tools. Will also provide personal protective equipment and toilet paper and bleach as well.
While the campaign addresses immediate needs, Bukasa says the broader goal is to shift how sanitation is prioritized in schools across the country.
So while the immediate goal is to improve the hygiene and functionality of school toilets, the long-term vision is to elevate the value placed on sanitation in schools, planning, staffing and budgeting. Because what we have seen in the recent past is that some schools do not have cleaners. Some schools do not, unfortunately, invest enough their own budget in maintenance, and that is something that needs to be elevated in terms of prioritization for many schools.
The launch of the Gauteng leg of the campaign is also timely, aligning with the values behind Mandela Day.
The campaign aligns with Mandela Day because it is about giving back to the communities that we live in. Babysoft, as a successful South African brand, would not be where it is without the support of South African consumers. The campaign is also about giving back to school cleaners who do a great job, and we want to uplift the cleaners by giving them the dignity they deserve by ensuring that they have all the tools and the support that they need to carry out their work.
The partners behind the campaign say they are committed to long-term sustainable change because every child deserves access to clean, safe and dignified sanitation at school. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, today is a fascinating day. It's actually World Youth Skills Day, and that's a global call to equip young people with the tools they need for the jobs of tomorrow. As artificial intelligence and automation continue to transform industries, there's growing concern that many young people, especially in Africa, could be left behind. In South Africa, young people are being encouraged to future-proof their careers by gaining adaptable tech-driven skills. Our reporter Lebogang Mabange has more.
As AI continues to transform industries, South Africa's youth face both big opportunities and serious challenges. Experts warn that the future of work will demand new types of skills, and it's already happening. Smangele Nkosi is the general manager of Cisco South Africa.
AI is reshaping the world of work today and is also changing the skills young people need to thrive. Instead of simply replacing jobs, AI is changing how work is done, which skills are most in demand, and how people prepare for careers. We're seeing a shift from routine to human-centered skills. AI is able to automate routine tasks such as data entry and simple analysis. But the good news is that it cannot easily replace unique human qualities.
But not all young people are able to keep up. Nkosi says many are being left behind, especially those in rural areas.
What stops youth from accessing digital opportunities is one, lack of information and awareness. Many youth simply don't know what opportunities exist and how to access them. Opportunities are not necessarily advertised in places where youth spend their time. That is in social media and their own local spaces. The second one is around geographic limitation, because many programs are based in urban areas while youth in rural communities are left out.
She says unless something changes, South Africa risks losing its brightest talent to other countries.
Yes, South Africa is at real risk of losing talent to other countries, a phenomenon called brain drain. We see highly skilled professionals, especially in sectors like tech, healthcare, engineering and finance, that are immigrating in search for better opportunities, safety and stability. High employment, slow growth and limited job prospects push professionals to seek stability elsewhere. Countries like Canada, the UK and Australia are actively recruiting South African professionals. offering better pay, benefits, and working conditions.
Cisco says companies have a role to play in helping young people succeed, starting with access to the internet and digital skills.
Companies like Cisco have a duty to expand access to connectivity. At Cisco, we partner with government, our customers, partners, and NGOs to provide affordable or free internet access in schools, community centers, and public spaces. We do this through our Country Digital Acceleration Program.
With more than 411,000 South Africans already training through Cisco's Networking Academy, Nkosi says the goal is to help even more young people thrive in the digital economy, no matter where they come from. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
It's 7 o'clock Central Africa time, which means it's the second hour of Rise and Shine right here on Channel Africa, where we bring you the African perspective. Thanks so much indeed for joining us for this second hour. And we've got so much still to come. But a reminder that we're streaming live on www.channelafrica.co.za. And you can also find us on our mobile app, SABC+. I'm Peter Ndoro.
My name is Asanda, Beda. Coming up in this hour, we look at a new report by the Convention on Wetlands warning about 20% of the world's remaining wetlands could disappear by 2050. We also look at South Africa's rivers that are showing worrying levels of contamination. Detected in these rivers are significant concentrations of antiretroviral drugs and in major water bodies, including sources of drinking water. We'll get clarity on those. Of course, social media having taken that story and gone on panic mode as far as saying our drinking water might have ARVs in them, but we need clarity on that story. Those and more coming up in this hour. First, let's start with our news. Here's Onele Nsinzi, and then Musibudi Makura has our sports headlines.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you. Nigeria's former president, Muhammadu Buhari, has been buried at his home in northern Nigeria. This is 2 days after his death at the age of 82 at a clinic in London. His body was flown back to the country yesterday, and his successor, Bola Tinubu, was at the airport in Katsina State to receive the remains. It was then taken to Buhari's hometown of Ndoro, where hundreds were attending. The Islamic funeral prayers were held at the Central Mosque. Buhari ruled Africa's most populous nation between 2015 and 2023 and died in a London hospital on Sunday after an undisclosed illness. South Africa's Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection, Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya, says he was surprised to receive a letter stating that he has been placed on leave. This was confirmed yesterday by the National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemula, who stated that this is pending investigations into claims by Commissioner Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi accused Sibiya of having links to criminal syndicates that have infiltrated the SAPS. Sibiya says he will attend to the matter.
In relation to what happened, where I got a letter that suggests that I should be at home because there are some investigations being conducted against me, that one I am a little bit disturbed and surprised in a sense that once the president announced that it is going to be an inquiry that he will determine and produce a report, all of us need to comply and wait for our turn.
Meanwhile, the South African Parliament Police Justice and Constitutional Development Portfolio Committee will meet today to discuss how to approach and process the allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Provincial Commissioner Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. This after revelations by Mkhwanazi that the now removed Police Minister Senzo Mchunu is affiliated to persons linked to criminal activities. He also indicated that top police officials are involved in criminal activities activities. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Togoti Diza, has directed the portfolio committees on police, justice and constitutional development, as well as the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, to consider on an urgent basis these revelations in terms of their respective mandates and to report to the National Assembly. The U.S. Homeland Security Department says a deportation flight carrying immigrants from different countries landed in Eswatini yesterday in a move that follows the U.S. Supreme Court's lifting limits on deporting migrants to third countries. In late June, the U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way for President Donald Trump's administration to resume deporting migrants to countries other than their own without offering them a chance to show the harms they could face. The decision handed the government a win in its aggressive pursuit of mass deportations. Earlier this month, the top Trump administration official said that U.S. immigrants officials may deport migrants to countries other than their home nations with at least 6 hours notice. And lastly, Russian drones and missiles attacked wide areas of Ukraine in the early hours of this morning. 2 people were killed in a drone strike near Kupiansk in Ukraine's second city. At least 17 explosions were recorded in one attack lasting 20 minutes. The regional governor says 3 people have been injured. Drones and missiles knocked out power and water supplies in the area of the southeast. Now, look, for any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, so the West Indies will seek advice from legendary former players following their test side's crushing defeat by Australia. And then 2-time champions, the Democratic Republic of Congo, have unveiled a 36-man preliminary squad for this year's CHAN tournament. Details of these and other stories coming up at 7:30.
Start your day informed, inspired, and entertained. Asanda and Peter bring you Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time.
6 minutes past 7 Central African Time. Let's go to Nigeria now, where the former Nigerian President, Muhammadu Buhari, who died in a London hospital on the 13th of June this year, has been laid to rest in Daura, his home state in Katsina State, northwest of Nigeria. Though his passing away was described as a loss to the country, many Nigerians believe that Buhari's leadership brought the country backward and is responsible for a number of unpleasant socio-political situations plaguing Nigeria and its citizens to this day. Channel Africa's correspondent in Nigeria, Collins Nosa Atohengbe, reports.
It's not a loss to the family alone, but to the entire nation. May Allah grant the soul of our patriarch, of our father, eternal rest. May Allah also give the family, the government and people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria the fortitude to bear the irreparable loss.
That was Vice President Kashim Shettima while conveying the message of President Bola Tinubu to the family of the late Muhammadu Buhari prior to the reception of the remains of the former leader. Though in holiday move, the 15th of July 2025 saw the formal closing of the chapter of life of former President Muhammadu Buhari as he was laid to rest in his homestead in Daura, Katsina State, in a solemn state funeral. The ceremony was attended by dignitaries from all walks of life, led by the nation's chief mourner, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and with him were members of his cabinet, political allies, members of the diplomatic corps, and his immediate family members from Nigeria and the Republic of Niger, Buhari's original home. The President Bola Tinubu, in a pensive mood, apparently saddened by the loss of a political leader and predecessor in office, received the body of the deceased at the Yaradua Airport in Katsina, capital of Katsina State, from where it was moved in a procession to Daura, where it was formally laid to rest in an Islamic ceremony at his birthplace after a brief military honors befitting a general of the Nigerian army. There is a common saying in Nigeria that you do not speak ill of the dead, but in the case of the late Muhammadu Buhari, lots of Nigerians were quick to dwell on what they consider to be the bad elements in his administration. His handling of the End SARS, a peaceful protest against police brutality by Nigerian youths at Lekki toll gate in Lagos on October 20, 2020, and his inability to establish a proper health care system, including at the State House, did not qualify him as a good leader, said an activist, Peter Aka, who lamented the situation where Buhari as president had to go to the United Kingdom for the treatment of his hearing problem.
The mere fact that the former president died in a private clinic in London tells you everything you need to know about the class and kind of leaders we have. Been president for 8 years and you kept treating ear infections in London. Buhari as a person was the greatest calamity that befell Nigeria since maybe modern history. He was the mistake that should not have been made, and what we are suffering in Nigeria is the ghost of the Buhari administration. If there is anything that culminates, I think, the Buhari legacy, it will be October 20th, 2020. Imagine if his only son Yusuf was amongst the innocent Nigerians who were seated at the toll gate waving their country's flag and singing the national anthem, protesting police brutality. What was his response? Unleashing firearms at peaceful protesters. 78 persons were buried in a mass burial in Benue State, killed within security under Buhari's administration. He did not raise a finger. So look, no matter how much you want to whitewash anything, it is important that people stick to the truth. And our current leaders should know that power is transient, and even the worst of tyrants still have an end.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo thinks differently, and not because he felt that the late Buhari was right, but because, as it were, every man has his good point and bad part. He wished the departed former president well and prayed that God will forgive his inadequacies and give him a place in his kingdom.
He tried his best. My prayer is that God will forgive him his inadequacies and accept him into his kingdom. It's a loss to the nation.
Pastor Tunde Bakare, Muhammadu Buhari's running mate in his presidential bid in 2011, says Buhari was a man who never had any corruption tendencies, despite having held lofty positions from where he could have benefited personally. He dared anyone to provide any evidence against the deceased. Though Pastor Bakare may be right in his claim of Buhari's being incorruptible, but the executive director of a civil society group known as the Youth Initiative for Advocacy Group and Advancement, Yaga Africa, Samuel Itodo, says Buhari has some very visible inadequacies as a leader which dwarfs anything that he may seem to have done well.
But there was a weak democratic culture in those 8 years. You would also look at the political intolerance. There were several disappearances of media personnel, and all that actually contest some of the legacies that he's left behind. And we have seen post his administration how there have been several corruption cases, and how some of his ministers took advantage of his lack of oversight on their leadership to actually plunder the resources of the state and mismanaged and abused power which was vested into them in trust.
There is no man without value for his generation, and that is also true of the late Muhammadu Buhari, whose life was of service to Nigeria as a military officer who fought in Nigeria's civil war, held a number of national appointments, and as a military officer he rose to the rank of a general and also became a military head of state after overthrowing civilian President Shehu Shagari in 1983. And according to Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, the man with whom he shares the rare opportunity of becoming Nigeria's leader twice, first as a military head of state and as a civilian president, Nigeria needs the experience of its past leaders to help lift the nation out of its worries.
At a time like this, we need the totality of the experience and what I may call statesmanship of all those who have had opportunity to run the affairs of this country in the past to get us out of the situation we are in. He will be sorely missed, and may his soul rest in perfect peace.
Peace indeed is what Buhari needs, and that Nigerians have wished him as he was lowered into Mother Earth in the evening of Tuesday, July 15, 2025. All that remains is between him and his Maker, to whom he will give the account of his stewardship while on earth. From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Collins Nosa Atohengbe for Channel Africa News.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Beda, Dr. Sidi Ould Tah, he is vying for the presidency of the African Development Bank, the AFDB. He positions himself as a fervent defender of economic integration and structural transformation on the African continent.
So I do believe that I have a 360 view of the development challenges in the continent with my experience from both the supply side and the demand side. But more importantly, my vision is to bring on board all the stakeholders and to have a holistic approach for the development of the continent and to develop partnership across the continent and outside the continent, bringing all the stakeholders together to work for one goal is to make Africa great for life and livelihood of the African population.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
So, wetlands from lakes and rivers to marshes and mangroves are some of the planet's most important ecosystems, and they support biodiversity, provide fresh water, regulate the climate, and protect communities from floods as well as droughts. Now, but according to the newly released Global Wetland Outlook 2025, these ecosystems are vanishing faster than any other, with over 20% already lost since 1970, and that's a fifth of what remains under threat by 2050. And the potential cost, well, it's believed to be an eye-watering $39 trillion in lost benefits. Now, this report was released ahead of next week's COP15 convention on wetlands in Zimbabwe, calling for urgent, coordinated global action. And here in Africa, the outlook is especially alarming, with the steep declines already affecting livelihoods and food security. Joining us now to unpack these findings is Dr. Julie Mulonga, who's Director of Wetlands International, Eastern Africa, who will be participating in the global launch of the report in Nairobi. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program, Dr. Mulonga.
Thank you very much.
So this report warns that a fifth of the world's remaining wetlands could disappear by 2050. And that's really alarming. From your perspective, how urgent is the situation in Africa in particular? Hello, Dr. Mulonga? Dr. Mulonga, are you still there? All right, we seem to be having an issue with the network. Dr. Mulonga, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. So you were about to tell us what the situation in Africa is, particularly regarding this wetlands crisis.
Okay, so I think what I'd like to stress is that the urgency is extremely high, and I think the global wetlands outlook makes it very clear with these stark warnings that you've just indicated, that indeed we are losing 35% of our world's wetlands since 1970, and of course in Africa that is even that could even be higher. So it could be even more than 35% in some countries. And in Africa, it's even worse because a lot of us highly depend on these wetlands, be it for fisheries, be it for water. So indeed, we really need to look at this. We need to look at this urgently and make sure that we are restoring our wetlands and protecting them so that we do not continue losing them. Yeah.
So I was a little bit surprised to learn that wetlands help prevent floods, store carbon, and even purify water. Given that, are African governments, do you think, and planners doing enough to integrate wetlands into climate and development strategies?
There are some governments who are progressing well, but we still need to ensure that we incorporate wetlands within our planning. That is still not being done well. They're not being recognized in terms of planning. So a lot more needs to be done when we're doing natural accounting. We also need to include the fact that wetlands do have a value and include them in that.
So what is the biggest threat to our wetlands? What's our biggest, what is bringing potential harm to our wetlands?
Development. I mean, wetlands are considered as wastelands, so most of them are actually being cleared for various development projects, be it agriculture, be it dams, whatever it may be. So that is one of the biggest threats that they are facing. And then the fact that they're not being embedded in policy, so they're just not being recognized. So we do need policies to be able to protect our wetlands and to be able to restore them. So those are the biggest threats that we are facing.
Is there hope? If we do the right things, what are those things, and can we reverse this?
There's a lot of hope, and I think the Global Wetlands Outlook has 4 very clear pathways. One, to ensure that we include the value of these wetlands in policy. So include them, be it in our GDP, in our national risk frameworks. And then, of course, planning with nature, ensuring we include them when we're planning for our land, our water, and different systems. And then, of course, finance. We need a lot of finance to be able to do this. So leverage a lot of finance. And we're also looking at innovative finance, the resilience bonds, be it the blended finance, and of course, including everybody. So including the private sector, including the communities, the public, the communities, the public, the private, and the community. So bringing everybody together to be able to restore, be able to protect our wetlands. And I think this COP15 that's coming up next week in Zimbabwe gives us a good platform to be able to put these things on the table and discuss them as different stakeholders. So indeed, we need to elevate our wetlands, bring them from the margins, and bring them into the mainstream, bring them to the tables, and discuss them among different stakeholders. The report. The science is now very clear. The economics within the report that you indicated before, very clear. And now we've been given these tools. So if we are able to bring everybody together, bring the investment forward, make very bold decisions, we can reverse this.
You spoke about Zimbabwe and COP15. What specific commitments would you like to see come out of that conference?
finance. I think we need to put together more finance to be able to sort out our wetlands, to be able to go into restoration, be it the on the ground actions or whatever it may be. Number two, policy. We need to be able to have bold policies that address issues around wetlands. So that's what I'm looking forward to next week.
All right, and I hope we can catch up with you soon after that. But for today, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts on this very important issue.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you. That's Dr. Julie Molonga, Director for Wetlands International East Africa, talking to us on the line about this urgent and critical issue.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live 5 days a week. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine.
Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m.
Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Well, we're going to talk about the World Health Organization and UNICEF talking of vaccinations and children and the challenges that are being encountered when it comes to the distribution of those vaccinations. Things like misinformation and, of course, those US aid cuts are having ripple effects on literally everything, especially in our health sectors in the continent. We're talking about the Kenya Wildlife Service and taking bold steps to safeguard it. That's going to be a chat that we talk about later on. And they've got a rich biodiversity in the country, but it is going under pressure. Things like global warming and, again, funding are things that are posing challenges in terms of us keeping our wildlife services in the conditions that they need to be in and safeguarding those biodiversity measures and implementing them effectively. But that's coming up later. Right now, though, let's look at the World Health Organization and UNICEF saying more than 14 million children remained completely unvaccinated in 2024. The two organizations have warned that widespread misinformation and severe international aid cuts are widening coverage gaps, putting millions of children at risk. They say in a joint report that in Europe and Central Asia, average childhood vaccination rates are stagnating or fell by 1%. Dr. Paul Ngwakum, Regional Health Advisor for Eastern and Southern Africa at UNICEF, is on the line to discuss this further. Dr. Ngwakum, thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
I'm feeling good. Thanks for inviting me.
Our pleasure. So one would expect that this is a challenge that Africa faces, but we're seeing Central Asia and Europe are also struggling. What are some of the factors that are leading to low vaccination numbers in children? We mentioned misinformation and aid cuts.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there are several overlapping factors, and according to the report, in addition to misinformation and funding shortfalls, we have other things like geographical barriers. Many children, they live in remote or hard-to-reach areas with no nearby health facilities or bad roads, making it difficult for them to have access to vaccination. But you also have a bunch of children that live in conflict and security-affected areas. These are children on the move, children living in displaced communities. They too have difficult access. But the main thing is weak systems, and you already put forward the funding shortfalls. Funding shortfalls means we don't have enough resources to mobilize health workers. We don't have resources to procure the vaccines. We don't have resources to take them to where these children are. But misinformation, you already underlined that is a big barrier and breeding objectors to vaccination, leading to high number of unvaccinated children. I just want to end by saying this may not be very, very evident, but social and gender barriers also play a part in preventing children from vaccination. For example, a woman has the responsibility of taking the child for vaccination, but if this woman has to have permission from a male partner who maybe is an objector, this can be a big challenge.
Right. How are we doing as Africa when it comes to the vaccination of children?
The report speaks for itself. The data published yesterday, actually, by WHO and UNICEF shows that in 2024, there has been some progress. This is, we have to take this with a pinch of salt. In terms of absolute numbers, in Eastern and Southern Africa, for example, we vaccinated 15.5 million children for the DPT1 vaccine, which is a small increase from 2023. But this makes sense because there's also increase in population. Measles, for example, moved for something like 56% in Eastern and Southern Africa to 60%. But I just want to say this is not enough. For us to stop outbreaks of measles, we need 95% coverage. For us to say we vaccinated children as per the threshold set by the Agenda 2030 for immunization, we need to have 90% coverage. Another antigen, which I know it's very important for preventing cervical cancer for women, we are progressing on HPV vaccine. In 2023, in Eastern and Southern Africa, we had reached 53%. The good news is we've got now up to 59% in 2024. But as I said, overall, we need to keep pushing to be able to ensure that these vaccines, which is described as the best or the most efficient intervention in public health, helps to prevent children from these deadly and preventable diseases.
Thank you, Dr. Gwankum. We're going to leave it there for today. And again, we appreciate your insights.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's Dr. Paul Nwakum, Regional Health Advisor for Eastern and Southern Africa at UNICEF, joining us there on the report on vaccination numbers in children having declined and what needs to be done moving forward now. It's 7:30 Central African Time. Let's get our news headlines. Here's Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. South Africa's minister in the presidency responsible for state security, Nkumbudzo Nchabeni, says one of the country's risks identified in the National Security Strategy for 2024-2028 is a possible coup d'etat. This comes after recent damning allegations made by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of serious safety and security concerns. The U.S. Homeland Security Department says a deportation flight carrying immigrants from different countries landed in Eswatini yesterday, a move that follows the U.S. Supreme Court's lifting limits on deporting migrants to third countries. And Cuba's President Miguel Diaz-Canel has rejected comments made by his labor minister, who denied the existence of beggars or homeless people in the country. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Time now to find out what's happening in the world of sport with Rachel Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Very good morning from the sports desk. Now, two-time champions, the Democratic Republic of Congo, have laid down a bold statement of intent. This is, of course, ahead of the 2024 Total Energies African Nations Championship Tournament, unveiling a 36-man preliminary squad as they target a historic third continental crown. So the head coach of the side, Otis Ngoma, has assembled a star-studded home-based squad dominated by top clubs such as TP Mazembe, FC Lopopo, AS Manema Union, as well as AC Rangers, as the Leopards seek to relive their past Chan glories of 2009 as well as 2016. So with Chan 2024 set to be by Kenya, Uganda as well as Tanzania from the 2nd to the 30th of August. The DR Congo side have been drawn in a fiercely competitive group. They are in Group A alongside the host side Kenya, the two-time champions Morocco, Angola as well as Zambia in what many have dubbed the Group of Death. The squad meanwhile will commence their training in Kinshasa from today until the 20th of July before heading to Algeria for an intensive camp from the 21st of July until the 30th of July. Further field now, Switzerland's training session schedule for yesterday was postponed due to a number of players being struck by illness 3 days before the Women's Euro 2025 quarter-final with Spain. So Switzerland will host Spain in Bern on Friday, with the winner of the last 8 fixture playing the winner between France as well as Germany in the semi-finals. In a statement, the Swiss Football Federation said the past few days some players have dealt with symptoms of a cold. In order to ensure a high-quality training program, the technical staff have decided to give off today off, as well as complete the training session that was planned for today, tomorrow. Spain are reigning world champions and are bidding, by the way, to win their first ever European Championship title. Back home now, accepting his second honorary doctorate from the University of Wits on Tuesday, Kaizer Chiefs chairman Dr. Kaiser Motaung says together with the club they have serviced the country as well as in the 50 years of their existence. Motaung received an honorary doctorate in commerce during the graduation ceremony at Wits on Tuesday. This was his second honorary doctorate for Motaung, as he was also bestowed by the University of Cape Town with a Doctor of Social Science in July of 2022 for his contribution to football as well as social development in the country. Meanwhile, Motaung says Chiefs bring a lot of excitement to the country.
A couple of weeks ago, we won the cup after 10 years or so. The country was in a very, very different mood. I've never seen the country like that. It was like there was a World Cup that was played here, and yet it was just a local competition, a local cup, the Nedbank Cup. I think that demonstrated the power that our supporters have. Everywhere we looked at, when you watch TV, you see universities, hostels, townships, everywhere people were celebrating. So
Motaung was only 25 years of age when he formed Chiefs back in 1970 with some of his former teammates as well as officials from Orlando Pirates when they broke away from the club. Now, 55 years later and in charge of the biggest football club in the country, he looks back with pride at the achievements and also being a member of the Wits community.
And I'm happy that I was able to accept this honor. It's a great honor bestowed upon me by the university, and it's an honor which I think needs to be celebrated in my family. Though the family, members of the family have gone through this university, my grandchildren and my children have also gone through some of the university. So I'm very happy and proud to be part of this community.
And finally, West Indies will seek the advice of legendary former players Sir Viv Richards, Sir Clive Lloyd, as well as Brian Lara following the Test side crushing defeat by Australia. They were bowled out for just 27 runs, the second lowest score in Test history and the worst since 1955 as they lost their third Test in Jamaica to succumb to a series clean sweep. In response, West Indies President Dr. Keshmore Shallow has called for an emergency meeting to review the series as well as the final match in particular. Now, given the side's ongoing struggles with the bat, Richards, Lloyd as well as Lara, some of the greatest ever batsmen to have played the game, have been invited to attend the meeting. They will join fellow West Indies batting greats in Shivaran Chandapal as well as Desmond Hayes and former fast bowler Ian Bradshaw, who were also currently serving on the cricket strategy as well as officiating committee. Now, Shallow also insisted that the team is in a rebuilding phase and the investment is being made to reignite the spirit that has long made the West Indies cricket a force in world cricket. It's a wrap from the Sports Desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Export depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Let's find out now about the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development in terms of their expectations for growth in their 15 member states. That's part of our business news. Here's Buntlehead Bush with the details.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Asanda. Good morning. The ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development says it expects that the growth of the 15-member Economic Community of West African States Regional Bloc, ECOWAS, will inch down to 5% this year from 5.1% last year. The bank has linked the decline to the U.S. tariffs as well as to the duties being imposed on it in Africa, following the decision of 3 of its members to set up a rival alliance. The new bloc, known as the Alliance of Sahel States, including Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, has imposed taxes on goods from the rest of ECOWAS. Experts are encouraging African countries to increase investment in ministries that facilitate trade, such as the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition in South Africa. Executive Director at the African Leather and Leather Products Institute, Nicholas Mudungwe, says this is because globally, ministries of industry and trade have led industrialization. This as a continent looks to industrialization for growth. Speaking at the 2-day manufacturing Indaba, Mudungwe says a policy to industrialize without financial backing is as good as none.
Each African country that has put up an industrial policy, it should also put a budget in the Ministry of Industry or in the Department of Trade and Industry. South Africa, fortunately, you already have that instrument under IDC. But most African countries, they don't put money, they expect investors to come from abroad. So for industrialization to take place, we need to put money in the relevant institutions, relevant ministries to support policy implementation.
The acting port manager in Durban, South Africa, Ngumbuzi Ben Mazwi, says they've spent more than $106 million on improving infrastructure in the country's busiest port over the past few years. This includes replacing cranes and other container handling equipment that have reached the end of their lifespan. This comes after the port experienced a huge backlog at the end of 2023, which continued into January last year. Ben Mazwi says this is part of the port's recovery program aimed at rectifying the lack of maintenance over many years. He says Bay Head Road, which handles over 13,000 container carrying trucks every 12 hours, is also undergoing maintenance.
Currently, as we speak, we're busy with the Bay Head Road. The Bay Head Road, as you'll know, it is the artery of all the trucks that are going to the DCT, Durban Container Terminal, where most of our container volumes are based. So with that, you'll notice as well from a TPT point of view, as well the landlord as TNPA at the Port of Durban, we've got one of our terminal operators, which is TPT as well, putting a lot of equipment as well, buying equipment like straddle carriers to try to improve the turnaround of the vessels.
Morocco's economic growth is likely to slow down to 4% next year from the 4.4% expected this year. The country's official statistics agency, HCP, says this is because of global trade uncertainties. The forecast was based on assumptions of an average wheat harvest and a drop in foreign demand for Moroccan goods. The statistics agency said domestic demand continues to drive imports, contributing to the widening of the current account deficit, which is seen at 1.9% of gross domestic product in 2026, up from 1.8% in 2025. Moving further afield, the United States has said it will launch an investigation into possible unfair trade practices by Brazil. Relations between Washington and Brazil's left-wing government have deteriorated since President Trump took office. The BBC's Katie Silver has more details.
We've heard from the US Trade Representative Jamison Greer saying that they're going to be looking into Brazil's attacks on American social media companies and what they called unfair trade practices that harm American companies, workers, farmers and technology innovators. Now, certain things that we know that they're going to look into are things like digital payments, electronic payment systems, digital trade, access for US ethanol into the Brazilian market. It's all under what's known as Section 301, so it's different from those reciprocal tariffs. In terms of procedure, what happens now is we see this consultation period. We understand in September they'll make a decision.
Now taking a look at the financial indicators this morning, $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,529 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 24. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 58, and in Zambia it's 23 kwacha 5. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 56. Russia 78 rubles 1. India is 85 rupees 90. China 7 yuan 17, and South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 86 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,333 and platinum at $1,403 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $68.88 a barrel. And those are your business news at this hour. I'll be back with more in the next hour. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hedbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
7:45 Central African time it is. Good morning. If you've just joined us on Rise and Shine, we now look at member of the Executive Council, or MEC, for Economic Development in the Gauteng province of South Africa, Lebogang Maile, saying Africa's manufacturing sector faces significant hurdles, which include inadequate infrastructure, unreliable energy supplies, limited access to finance, and skills gaps. He was speaking at the two-day Manufacturing Indaba, which began in Johannesburg on Tuesday. The Indaba is attended by role players in the sector from across the African continent. Countries represented include Kenya, Botswana, Ivory Coast, and Namibia, amongst others. Sisi Sekhalo attended the Indaba and has more on the story.
Manufacturing Indaba is an established annual event dedicated to driving Africa's reindustrialization by fostering local manufacturing, connecting leaders, and empowering businesses to grow and create jobs. South Africa is hosting the event, and Gauteng Province member of the Executive Council, MEC for Economic Development, Lebogang Maile, was in attendance. In addressing delegates, he emphasized that with the correct policies, Africa can integrate into global value chains, supplying products to other countries, and that African-made products have a place in the global market. However, he added that there are challenges that must be overcome.
Addressing these challenges requires coordinated action by governments, the private sector, and international partners. Key priorities for us must include investing in infrastructure. This is because Reliable roads, ports, energy, and digital networks are essential for competitive manufacturing. We must also prioritize improving the business environment. Streamlined regulations and transparent governance attract investment and foster entrepreneurship. Additionally, we must make the building of human capital a key priority. Education and vocational training tailored to industry needs will ensure a skilled and adaptable workforce.
A delegate from Zambia's Industrial Development Corporation, Lumba Latula, believes manufacturing is an important sector as it is the huge creator of jobs. One of the things he advocates for is for Africa to begin to move away from exporting raw products.
We've reached a generational inflection point where we want to start seeing a lot more manufacturing happening on the continent. We need to value add to our natural resource wealth. That way we can create and retain those jobs on the continent, because we have a burgeoning youthful population that will require that they find formal employment, and we can only do that obviously through some of the sectors such as manufacturing.
Tairu Wanjiku is an exhibitor at the Indaba. She's showcasing coffee grown in her country. Her hope is to find new markets from the Indaba.
We are so excited to be here in South Africa, Johannesburg. It's our first time to exhibit here, and we are really looking to have open partnerships here and also maybe get distributors from the event to supply our coffee to South Africa at large.
The Indaba continues today. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hawa wa Afrika Kusini wenye asili ya kizungu ambao wamepewa ukimbizi huko nchini Marekani. Je, nini chanzo cha wao kuomba ukimbizi nchini Marekani?
Wenyewe wajaomba ukimbizi. Kuna shirika fulani inaitwa AfriForum, shirika mbili za wazungu ambao wanatetea haki ya wazungu hapa, AfriForum na Solidarity. Hao walienda Marekani kufanya kampeni kusema kwamba wazungu wananyanyaswa hapa Afrika Kusini, na walivyofanya hiyo kampeni serikali iweze kuwafuatilia kujua nini ambacho mnasema kwamba mnanyanyaswa.
Kuna namna ya wao kwamba wamepoteza uraia wa Afrika Kusini, na je, endapo Trump akamaliza muda wake madarakani, uhalali wao wa kuishi nchini Marekani ukoje?
Itakuwa vigumu, kifupi itakuwa vigumu wenyewe kupoteza uraia wao.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. Have you been struggling to find Channel Africa?
Oh yes, where can I find you guys?
Well, you are in luck.
Warning, radioactive zone detected.
Listen to the African perspective on our brand new SABC Plus app. Download the fresh and easy to use app from sabcplus.com or the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Or just command your phone to find SABC Plus on your phone and check out all this good stuff. And that's where you will find Channel Africa, the African perspective. Oh yes, this is fresh and easy. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, it's 10 to 8 Central African time, and we're taking a look at an important issue here in South Africa now. The country is facing a hidden yet growing threat in its waterways. A new study by researchers at the Northwest University has revealed the presence of antiretroviral drugs used in the treatment of HIV in several major rivers and even sources of drinking water. Traces of medications like lopinavir and Efavirenz were found downstream in wastewater treatment plants, raising concerns not only for aquatic ecosystems but also for human health. Now, this groundbreaking research suggests that our current wastewater systems may be struggling to keep up with the growing pharmaceutical load. But how dangerous is this contamination, and what does it mean for the millions who rely on these water sources? To help us understand the findings and their implications, we're now joined by Professor Suren Horn from the Northwest University's Africa Unit for Transdisciplinary Health Research, one of the lead authors of the study. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Peter. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm glad to be here.
All right, so what prompted this study, and what were the key findings regarding particularly ARVs in South Africa's water systems?
So, as you've mentioned, South Africa has the largest HIV treatment program in the world, with roughly about 7 million people receiving ARV treatment. This had us thinking about, where do all of these chemicals go? So they go into the sewer system, but what then? And therefore we then investigated the levels of these compounds in rivers around Gauteng and the Northwest provinces. We chose these provinces, especially Gauteng, because it's densely populated and you would have the best indication if there's contamination present. So in the study, we sampled water at 72 sites. It included surface water such as rivers and dams, as well as upstream and downstream of wastewater treatment plants, and also tap water. And then in the study, we found concentrations of ARVs. We could detect it with our analytical method, and especially, as you've mentioned, lopinavir, efavirenz, and nevirapine.
So, are these levels particularly worrying from a health and environmental perspective?
So these levels are detected at trace amounts. So it's not near the therapeutic dose that is prescribed to people receiving this treatment. So I think for humans, not. And the tap water or the drinking water levels were really, really very low. Yeah. So there's no inherent and immediate risk to humans because the levels are very low. But it's a different story when looking at the aquatic environment because these drugs are continuously introduced. People use it every day, not once a while when they have a headache, which is the such for paracetamol, but they use it every day. So even though these compounds come in the water and go out, they are introduced tomorrow again. And these low-level residues could have effects on the aquatic ecosystems.
How do we know how these drugs actually end up in the rivers and water sources?
So the main level of exposure is actually via excretion of people that use the medication, and then the sewage, it goes into sewage systems. And because the wastewater treatment plants are not designed to actually remove these chemicals, the treated water is discharged into the rivers and they contain residues of these compounds. Another one is improper sanitation infrastructure, where waste is often disposed directly into the environment. And this is also the case for unused or expired medication, where people flush it down the toilet or discard it directly into the environment. So those are the main sources that ARVs accidentally end up in the water sources.
So I guess this is an opportunity for us to re-look at our wastewater treatment plants, and upgrades probably are necessary.
Yes, definitely. Our wastewater treatment plants, they weren't built to actually remove pharmaceutical compounds, not only ARVs, but your antibiotics and your hormones specifically. So these are chemically stable and resistant to breakdown, and they are also continuously introduced. So it would definitely benefit us if we could upgrade treatment technology, but on a large scale. And I think that is where the biggest problem comes in. So people have tested small-scale activated carbon filters or ozonation or membrane filtration, but this has to be done at a large scale to actually treat the large amounts of waste or effluent sewage coming in to the treatment plants.
Do you think there needs to be stricter legislation in terms of pharmaceutical disposals?
Yes, definitely as well. There is this issue with the waste being disposed improperly, and it's not being taken away constantly. So that is also a big problem that could be rectified with some more regulation or stricter enforcement of regulations.
You mentioned earlier the danger to aquatic life. Have you seen any signs in your studies at all at this stage, or is this something that's probably needs more a study?
So there has been studies where people expose fish in the laboratory tanks, for example, to low concentrations of the ARVs, and there they found that these chemicals could disrupt the liver function, the hormone levels, and reproduction of fish. But these tests were done like soloed. So, well, in isolation, sorry, that's what I want to say, in isolation, but in the environment, there are other pharmaceuticals that can also contribute to the chemical cocktails the fish are exposed to, for example, and that is difficult to pinpoint. So, there are studies where fish have been found to have defects, but what caused those defects is still unknown. So, there has to be some more research into what the ARVs exactly cause or what effects do they cause in addition to all the other chemicals also in the water.
All right, and very briefly, so trace amounts at the moment, no immediate concern for human beings, but over time and population growth, etc., what kind of issues might develop for human beings?
So I think the most worrying thing is the chronic low-level exposure over time, and especially for vulnerable populations such as infants, the elderly, or immunocompromised individuals. They are the greatest at risk, and therefore it is very important to continue this research over the long term. So yes, and then if health effects can be determined, drinking water guidelines for these compounds can be developed to say we must monitor the compounds over time, and if that levels are exceeded, then we need to worry. But it has to there has to be a lot of more research on those specific effects and levels.
Professor, we're going to have to leave it. Thank you so much indeed for your time and the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much, Peter. Have a nice day.
Thank you. That's Professor Surani Horn from the Northwest University of Africa's Unit for Transdisciplinary Health Research, one of the lead authors of this study looking at ARV disposal in our water systems. Seven o'clock Central Africa. No, 8 o'clock. My goodness, I lost an hour there, Asanda, Beda. 8 o'clock Central African time. You're listening to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, where we bring you the African perspective. Streaming at www.channelafrica.co.za. And you can also find us on your mobile app, SABC Plus. That's SABC Plus. And also we're streaming live on our social media platforms.
Coming up in this hour, my name is Asanda Beda. We're looking at Ugandan businessman, politician and professional pilot, Captain George Michael Mukula, known as Mike Mukula. That's our Wednesday profile, and we'll be chatting to him about his journey in the various hats that he wears. Let's get our news first. Here's Onel Nzinzi, and then Musubudi Makura follows with sports headlines.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. South Africa's minister in the presidency responsible for state security, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, says one of the country's risks identified in the National Security Strategy for 2024-2028 is a possible coup d'etat. She briefed the media at Parliament after the debate of her department's budget vote in the National Assembly. The debate comes after recent damning allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of serious safety and security concerns, which, amongst others, implicated Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. In response to this, President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced a judicial commission of inquiry and has placed Mchunu on special leave. Ntshabeni added that while not all risks will become reality, it is planned for and mitigated against.
One of them is the risk of coup d'etat, to say there is a potential risk of a coup d'etat. We have identified it and we've put measures to mitigate against it. So that's why we say to South Africans, there will not be anyone attempting to do a coup in South Africa. In the last few days or in the last few weeks, there has not been anyone attempting to do a coup in South Africa. We can say that not that they are not people planning, they are. We're continuously monitoring them and making sure that we deal with those.
South Africa's Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection, Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya, says he was surprised to receive a letter stating that he has been placed on leave. This was confirmed yesterday by the National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola, who stated that this is pending investigations into claims by the Commissioner Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi accused Sibiya of having links to criminal syndicates that have infiltrated the South African Police Service. Sibiya says he will attend to the matter.
In relation to what happened, where I got a letter that suggests that I should be at home because there are some investigations being conducted against me, that one I am a little bit disturbed and surprised in a sense that once the president announced that it is going to be an inquiry that he will determine and produce a report, all of us need to comply and wait for our turn.
Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari has been buried at his hometown in northern Nigeria. This 2 days after his death at the age of 82 at a clinic in London. His body was flown back to the country yesterday, and his successor, Bola Tinubu, was at the airport in Katsina State to receive the remains. It was then taken to Buhari. He was taken to his hometown in Ndoro, where hundreds of people were attending. Islamic funeral prayers were held at the Central Mosque. Buhari ruled Africa's most populous nation between 2015 and 2023 and died in London hospital on Sunday after an undisclosed illness. The U.S. Homeland Security Department says a deportation flight carrying immigrants from different countries landed in Eswatini yesterday, a move that follows the U.S. Supreme Court lifting limits on deporting migrants to third countries. In late June, the U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way for President Donald Trump's administration to resume deporting migrants to countries other than their own without offering them a chance to show the harms they could face. The decision handed the government a win in its aggressive pursuit of mass deportations. Earlier this month, a top Trump administration official said that U.S. immigration officials may deport migrants to countries other than their home nation with at least a 6-hour notice. Lastly, Cuba's President Miguel Diaz-Canel has rejected comments made by his labor minister who denied the existence of beggars or homeless people in the country. Marta Feito had told a congressional commission on Monday that those asking for money in the streets of Havana and other cities were in fact beggars in disguise looking for money to get drunk. President Diaz-Canel said the vulnerable should not be treated as enemies. The BBC's Leonardo Rocha reports.
This is very unusual, and it's a communist country where you normally have the official party line that people are supposed to follow. I think what's happening there is the president, on Monday, he asked for lawmakers to come up with solutions, say we have to generate wealth, we have to make the economy grow, and it's been really bad. People who've lived in Cuba for many years, there are periodic crises. You have every now and again, you have a serious crisis, you had the shortages, but since 2019, the situation has deteriorated a lot.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, two-time champions, the Democratic Republic of Congo, have unveiled a 36-man preliminary squad ahead of the Chan tournament, while the British player Tara Moore has been banned for 4 years for a doping offence, despite being cleared by an independent tribunal 18 months ago. Details coming up at the bottom of the hour.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
C'est notre invité du jour, la belle Aina Mwenze. Elle est là, certaines l'appellent Boss Lady.
Bonjour Monsieur Jolino.
Parlez-nous un tout petit peu de vous.
Je m'appelle Boss Lady Aina. Je mets l'accent sur le nom de Boss Lady parce que je mérite cela après le travail fait. Et c'est une rémunération en titre de la personne que je suis devenue aujourd'hui. Épouse et une mère de 4 garçons. Et voilà ce que je peux dire pour l'instant.
Et vous vous êtes lancé dans le business. Comment c'est venu?
En tant que mère et se retrouvant dans les pays étrangers, particulièrement en Afrique du Sud, je me disais que laisser les enfants sur la charge des travailleurs ou d'une bonne, ça serait pas très intéressant. Je me suis dit, bon, je dois essayer de m'organiser et trouver un emploi que je peux faire.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
Stella Longwe. Pamalonje.
Palitusokoma pano pamalonje. Kumvera nyimbo za mu Africa, kusangalala, kupeza moyo. Akuti kumva moyo kuti kuyenda bwino. Pano pamalonje. Ndiyetu apa tindikatswiri oyimba ameneyu ndikatswiri wa dziko la Malawi amene akukhala dziko la South Africa ndipo amayimba amene akuti ndi Big Nick Malawi. Yatusati kuti kodi moyo wanu woyimba ukuyenda bwanji mu Johannesburg?
Moyo woyimba ukuyenda bwino wambiri. Chili yonse chikutheka ndithu bwino.
Ayi aziwoneka yonse chikutheka mofa magrasi anu apa mwaka. Akuti kumenya yonse aziwoneka zoti azikutheka ndithu mu Johannesburg.
Malonje panthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lowiruka ndi Stella Longwe. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
It is Wednesday, and this day we dedicate to listening to stories by Africans in different fields, and those dedicated to their lives, or they've dedicated their lives to uplifting other Africans doing great things. Ugandan businessman, politician, and professional pilot, Captain George Michael Mukula, known as Mike Mukula, is our Wednesday profile this morning. He's currently vice chairperson of the Uganda governing party, the National Resistance Movement in Eastern Uganda. Captain, thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if I should call you Captain or Member of Parliament. You wear so many hats. But how are you this morning?
I'm pretty good, and it's exciting to talk to you this morning.
Oh, we are excited, and we appreciate you making this time. So which came first, and how do you balance your different hats? I suppose business and politics do go together, as we've seen. But how does the role of pilot fit itself into all of it?
Well, it's a profession that I have loved, grown, trained to operate. And business is something that my mother taught me, my late mother taught me when I was a little boy. And being a single mother, it was important that she had to make ends meet with 8 children. So she taught me business right from onset when I was a young boy. Now I became a professional pilot after training in United States, and then came back to be an instructor in the East African Civil Aviation Academy. At that time, as it were, it is the only center of excellence in East and Central Africa for training pilots. And then I went ahead and flew with various airlines, and I became then a presidential pilot. I used to fly President Museveni in the country.
Well, quite a journey there. But let's reverse a bit in terms of you being part of the parliament in Uganda. You were representing the Soroti municipality from 1996 to 2016. What have some of your notable achievements from this time been, according to your own reflections?
Well, politics really is a service. It's not a profession. It's a service to society, to people. And one of the things that I did for my people was to give back to society and to ensure that, as the going says, your network is your net worth. I have, over time, built 9 primary schools in Soroti, my constituency, and I have also built 2 secondary schools with the network with the government of Uganda. I built 5 health centers in school and was able to renovate the hospital, which was a 120-bed hospital, built in 1932 with the support of JICA, the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, and SIDA, Swedish International Development Agency, at the cost of 2 billion Uganda shillings and 1.8 million US dollars, to the extent that from the time I left in 2016, among many other things that I was able to extend to society, nothing has been done to emulate what I've done, the succeeding members of parliament. So I was able to give to society when I was a member of parliament.
You achieved quite a lot, but I know sometimes when we look back, we wish there are things we could have done differently. So are there any areas where you feel like you wish you had more time to tackle something specific there before leaving the role behind?
Well, one of the biggest challenges you face in the African continent, and I want you to understand that being a developing nation, underdeveloped, if you want to pin it that way, the challenges the African continent faces are really poverty at the grassroots, both urban and rural poverty. 2, youth unemployment. The demographic balloon in the African continent, mainly sub-Saharan, is very high. 80% of the population of Uganda is below the age of 30. 55% of the population of Uganda is below the age of 16 years. 0 to 4 years, the number of children are about 8 million children. That is a reflection of the challenges the African continent faces. What is my narrative? What am I saying? It means, therefore, that we have major challenges in youth employment, poverty, and I wished I could do more. I wish the government of Uganda had more resources to address the challenges that the young people face. That is my biggest challenge now.
Right. It's just almost 15 minutes past 8 Central African time. If you've just joined us on Africa Rise and Shine, we're in conversation with Ugandan businessman, politician and professional pilot, vice chairperson of the Uganda governing party, the National Resistance Movement in Eastern Uganda, Captain George Michael Mukula. What is the Soroti municipality in Uganda known for, which is also where you were born? It's a city in the eastern region of the country. We know it as a commercial and administrative center, but for somebody who has no idea what it is it known for?
I think we could say that the people, known for people that are upright, dedicated, committed, hardworking. That's one aspect that it is known for. Second thing is that, and contribute to the civil service structure of government of Uganda. Second point is the flying school. Is known for having one of the best flying schools in the African continent, which serves Eastern Central Africa, mainly the East African community. Pilots trained there, where I trained and where I was born. And Soroti is known to having moderate weather, is flat, and we are surrounded by a number of lakes. So Soroti is a beautiful city, metropolis really. And I want to say that I love and I wish you would pay a visit to Soroti City.
Right. And growing up in Soroti, what was life like? You had a single mom. You mentioned she was such a big influence in your education and inspiring you to get into flight school. You end up admitted to the Kenya School of Flying before you went to the US to further your pilot degree. Would you say that the ambition came from your childhood that and the things that you were exposed to, besides your mom?
Well, I used to have an uncle. He's long gone now. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Who lived in Entebbe, and he was the principal private secretary to General Idi Amin, who was then the president of Uganda. And we lived, whenever I used to go and visit him, we used to go and see pilots at the airport as a young boy. And I used to see these elegant, well-dressed, with excellent suits, blue or black, and with the golden strips, and the air hostesses who looked like models, really, pulling up their bags and looking very elegant. And I said, one day I must be a pilot. And that's what drove me as a young man to have that ambition to be a pilot. And I thank God that today I'm a pilot. And I'm also happy that in the same line, seeing people who were businessmen in the city and taught by my mother, I'm happy that today I run 28 companies. I employ over 3,000 people. And I'm happy to be contributing to the African Renaissance, the growth of our country, and giving young people opportunities to serve and to live a life that may be decent for them. I wish I could do more for the African continent.
What have you learned from your pilot and aviation career that you would say you apply to your everyday life? What were you exposed to in this time that has been notable in your memory?
I think timekeeping. You keep time, and I keep time. I am a consummate timekeeper. Second thing that I've learned over time is to be disciplined. I don't take alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't indulge in something that is irresponsible. And keeping healthy. I make sure that I keep a standard weight. I don't blow beyond proportion as in terms of body framework. And I like to thank God that I am free of any elements, no diabetes, no pressure, no HIV. And I think that this discipline has kept me alive to where I am now.
Some of your favorite destinations to both fly to as captain and also to visit as a passenger. And I don't know if you find yourself criticizing some pilots, especially if you are a passenger on a plane. But talk to us about some of your favorite destinations.
I think Dubai is a very good destination. Joburg is a good destination. I've flown to Cape Town. I have been to many parts of the world, but I want to say that some of really every flight has got its own frame, meaning that it is challenging, but in everything and exciting to be touching down in every airport, most of the airports that we've been to. But one of the things that I've loved is being able to land at this a sea level, places like Mombasa, where the engines spool and give you the best power. And then you've got a beautiful view of the oceans. Dar es Salaam is a good destination. So I really love the African continent because you have very nice beaches, and African continent is green and it's lovely, different from the other areas where you fly and it's snow-capped and sometimes with difficult weather. But let me say that Africa is a beautiful continent.
Absolutely. We agree with you on that one. Let's talk about now the business side of things. As you say, you own 28 companies under the Mukula group of companies. We often touch a lot on financing as a pivotal need in business formation and growth, especially on our continent. But as you see it, how much of a role can leadership advisory services play in securing the success of African businesses?
That is a very important point, and it's a narrative that is challenging all the time. you will note that African businesses are starved of working capital, and the cost of money, the cost of getting financing is very expensive. The interest rates are very high. The oversights that are provided by banks or extended by the banks are extremely very nerving. So that is a big challenge that you face, the cost of money, capital. Second thing that you also face is the human resource. It's a big challenge that we still have many young people who have not yet acquired the skills, the drive that give you the optimum human resource drive to propel industrial or what you call business growth. It's the biggest challenge we face is HR. The third point that you have also is sometimes the unpredictability of the market, which shifts all the time. And then the fourth point is the challenge you face from developed economies like China, India, and so on and so forth. That dump in the African market. Competition, therefore, becomes extremely difficult if you're in the manufacturing sector. But overall, to answer your question, it's important that the person at the helm, at the apex of leadership, is measured, strategic, and also tactical in a way to ensure that you maintain communication, command, and control, to ensure that the business is driven on the correct tangent. That is my experience.
On the side of politics, as member of the ruling National Resistance Movement, or NRM, under the leadership of President Yoweri Museveni, you serve as vice chairman for the Eastern region. You did, however, retire from elective politics in 2015. What inspired this move? Just yesterday here on Rise and Shine, we were talking about African leaders' obsession with clinging to power and in many instances being deposed by military coups or some revolt before stepping down. But you decided to retire. Why?
Well, I think I'd had my tour, and at a prime age, I thought that it was important for me to step into the private sector and walk the talk, meaning that I wanted to find ways and means of expanding the business sector, as I've said. And I thank God that we have a conglomerate of companies that are emerging now and driving and contributing to the tax kitty of government of Uganda. But also I wanted to ensure that in that direction, being a great Pan-Africanist and Ubuntu, you call it Ubuntu.
Yes.
It is important that being the chairman of the Pan-African Movement Uganda chapter, we must own this economy. I do not see Indians or Arabs or Chinese coming to own and drive the narrative of the business in the African continent because they don't give us the equal opportunity in their countries. You have not seen an African billionaire or millionaire or a successful businessman in China or in India because they don't get that opportunity. But you see them in Africa because we don't allow Africans to leverage and to challenge that. And that's why I think that coming in now, I think we need to give African solutions to the African problems. Second thing that you asked was about African leaders who stay in power. Of course, there are those who do not contribute to the economies, to the stability of the nation. But let me give you the narrative of my President Museveni, who is now 80 years in power. He's 80 years old, and he's 39, coming to 40 years in power. But I want to tell you, from a failed state with an economy which is running at about 179% inflation, the whole country was at war for nearly 24 years. It was a banana republic. President Museveni has been able to sustain and bring total peace to the country from the north to the south, east to the west. Uganda is now a stable country. The economic growth of the country has been at 6% for the last many years, over 30 years, growing And Uganda is among the 7 fastest growing economies, not only in Africa, but in the world. In terms of security in the region, our boots are in Somalia under the Pan-African Drive to ensure that where the NATO walked out from, President Museveni and UPDF stepped in, and we are now contributing to the stability of Somalia. We have also been inside under General Museveni in South Sudan, the youngest nation in the world, to guarantee stability in that country. We have 1.2 million nearly Sudanese that have run to Uganda, northern part of the country. Why? Because of the instability. Would have had a second genocide worse than Rwanda, where Rwanda lost 1 million people. Sudan would projections would have lost 5 million people if UPDF had not stepped in. You also know the story of the DRC Congo. We have stepped into the DRC Congo. Our boots are deep in North Kivu to create stability. And I want to tell you that President Museveni is not only a center of gravity in Uganda, but he's also a center of gravity in East and Central Africa. But most of all, the African continent was partitioned in 1884, 1886 in Berlin. And you know that we speak different languages. South Africa suffered from the apartheid, where the Boers came in and occupied and took over land. The white people in South Africa control 85% of the land in South Africa. That tells you that we need to redefine and ensure that we bring our borders together. And we think that East African Political Federation can be initiated, can be propelled, can be actualized under the elderly Museveni, who is now a center of gravity in the region, to now define and ensure that we work as Africans and build a strong African continent. These building blocks of EAC, SADC, and so on will possibly in future, if we start now, build what you call the African United States. What am I telling you? If the Europeans, our colonial masters, have been able to come together to form the European Union, United States is strong because 51 nations have come together. It means that if we have the driver, the vision to bring East Africa together, I think that's the direction we must provide by ensuring that we utilize good and able leaders like Museveni to do that. So it's the National Resistance Movement is not just a party, it's a revolutionary party, and it is pathing the African drive to crystallize and bring together economies and our people together.
There's still so much to talk about, Captain, but we've only got 1 minute left of this chat, and I really want to touch on this point because as the NRM, you've got a 5-year plan as the National Resistance Movement, the Central Executive Committee especially wanting to put this plan in place. But how much or what forms part of this plan, this 5-year plan, as much as it pertains to transformation, particularly on youth-led initiatives? You speak of Uganda having an 80% population of young people or people under the age of 30.
I think the critical point about young people is cadre identification, cadre training, and cadre placement, meaning that we must nurture and drive and bring the young people into the dynamic of political, economic, and social transformation. The National Resistance Movement is anchored on 4 points. One is patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy. These tenets give us a consolidated ideological drive to ensure that the future of the African continent, working and beginning with Uganda, we have what you call a social contract, which is a manifesto that we're now developing to include what we have done in the past and to focus on Vision 2040. What does it mean? We must ensure that we build the necessary infrastructure. Let me give you a simple example in 1 minute, less than 1 minute. If you look at hydroelectricity in this country, power and generated power, South Africa is north of 80,000 megawatts. Uganda by 1986, when Museveni took over power, had 62 megawatts, only 2 dams working, only 2 generators working, from a dam which was built by the British, Owen Falls Dam. Museveni has built 5 major dams. Uganda now is one of the most self-sufficient countries in terms of electricity. What am I saying? Infrastructure is critical in germinating and building a strong economic infrastructure. Without electricity, as you have seen in South Africa, you'll find that these outages are a major detriment to economic growth. That is one of the key things that we're looking at.
Yeah.
The roads, we're looking at health services, schools. We have free universal primary education, free universal secondary education, free medical health care. We are providing what you call a mass solution to the African challenges we face. So the manifesto we have speaks to the drive and the needs of the people.
I wish we had so much time, but we're going to have to leave it there for today. Thanking you again for your time. Captain, Honorable Member, Mr. Mukula, all the hats that you wear, we appreciate you for having chatted to us on Channel Africa this morning.
It's a pleasure talking to Channel Africa, and God bless you.
You
and
too.
Continue tuning to Channel Africa.
Thank you so much. Ugandan businessman, politician, and professional pilot, as well as vice chairperson of the Uganda governing party, the National Resistance Movement in Eastern Uganda, Captain George Michael Mukula, our Wednesday feature profile for today. Let's get our news headlines at 8:32 Central African Time. Good morning, Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Ethiopia has arrested dozens of suspected Islamic State militants who it claims have been trained and deployed across the country to operate. South Africa's minister in the presidency responsible for state security, Kumbuzo Nchabeni, says one of the country's risks identified in the national security strategy for the year 2024 to 2028 is a possible coup d'etat. This comes after recent damning allegations made by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of serious safety and security concerns. And the U.S. President Donald Trump has said Ukraine should not attack Moscow after a newspaper said he had discussed the possibility during a call with President Volodymyr Zelensky. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, it's time to find out what's been happening in the world of sport with Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning once again from the sports desk. Now, Springbok bruiser Jasper Visser will miss the bulk of the rugby championship as punishment for his headbutt on the Italian player in Gqeberha in South Africa's Eastern Cape province over the weekend. Now, he's been slapped with a 4-match suspension after receiving a red card in South Africa's 45-0 thrashing of Italy. The suspension, confirmed by World Rugby's disciplinary panel on Tuesday, means Visser will miss the final test of the incoming series against Georgia in the Nelspruit in Mpumalanga province, both rugby championship clashes against Australia in Johannesburg and in Cape Town on the 16th and the 23rd of August, as well as the first All Blacks test in Auckland on the 6th of September. He will, though, be available again for the return match against New Zealand in Wellington on the 13th of September, followed by 2 fixtures against Argentina in Durban and London. Onto the story now. British tennis player Tara Moore has been banned for 4 years for a doping offence, despite being cleared by an independent tribunal 18 months ago. An appeal by the International Tennis Integrity Agency has been upheld by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. The 4-year ban starts immediately but will be reduced to 19 months more, and will be reduced by 19 months. So Moore was provisionally suspended when the case first came to light. The 32-year-old from Britain's top-ranked women's doubles player when she was provisionally banned in May of 2022, having tested positive for androlone as well as boldenone at the tournament in the Colombian capital of Bogota in the previous month. But in December of 2023, an independent tribunal ruled contaminated meat was the source of the positive test and that Moore bore no fault or negligence. The British player said she had suffered 19 months of lost time and emotional distress. The British player also having returned to tour in April of 2024 and has played mostly on the ITF World Tour since. Earnings, by the way, for doubles players are meagre, although Moore did make it into the main draw for Wimbledon as well as the US Open just last year, as well as the Australian Open in January of this year. But following a hearing in March, the ruling from the Court of Arbitration for Sport means she will not be able to compete for the next coming months, and the first competition then will take place in 2028. Onto this story now. Two-time champions of the Chan tournament, that is the Democratic Republic of Congo, have made a bold statement of intent ahead of the 2024 competition, unveiling a 36-man preliminary squad as they target a historic continental crown. Now, the head coach of the side, Otis Ngoma, has assembled a star-studded home-based squad dominated by top clubs such as TP Mazembe, FC Lupopo, AS Manema Union, as well as AC Rangers, as the Leopards look to relive their past Chan glories of 2009 and 2016. So with the Chan 2024 tournament set to be co-hosted by Kenya, Uganda as well as Tanzania from the 2nd until the 30th of August, the DR Congo have been drawn in a fiercely competitive group. They are in Group A alongside Kenya, the two-time champions Morocco, Angola as well as Zambia, in a group dubbed the Group of Death. The squad, by the way, will commence their training session in Kinshasa from today until the 20th of July before heading to Algeria for an intensive camp from the 21st until the 30th of July. Back home now, accepting his second honorary doctorate from the Wits University on Tuesday, Kaizer Chiefs chairman Dr. Kaizer Motaung says together with the club they have serviced the country very well in the 55 years of existence. Motaung received an honorary doctorate in commerce during a graduation ceremony at Wits on Tuesday. This was also his second honorary doctorate for Motaung after he was bestowed by the University of Cape Town with the Doctor of Special and Social Science in July of 2022 for his contribution to football as well as social development in the country. Motaung says Chiefs have brought a lot of excitement to the country.
A couple of weeks ago, we won the cup after 10 years or so. The country was in a very, very different mood. I've never seen the country like that. It was like there was a World Cup that was played here, and yet it was just a local competition, a local cup. The Nedbank Cup. I think that demonstrated the power that our supporters have. Everywhere we looked at, when you watch TV, you see universities, hostels, townships, everywhere people were celebrating. So
Motaung, who was 25 years of age when he formed Chiefs back in 1970 with some of his former teammates and officials from Orlando Pirates when they broke away from the club, now 55 years later and in charge of the biggest football club in the country. He looks back with pride at the achievements and also being a member of the Wits community.
And I'm happy that I was able to accept this honor. It's a great honor bestowed upon me by the university, and it's an honor which I think needs to be celebrated in my family. Though the family, members of the family have gone through this university, my grandchildren and my children have also gone through some of the university, so I'm very happy and proud to be part of this community.
For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Let's find out about the International Monetary Fund issuing a warning to Ethiopia about its reform agenda. What's happening, Butle Headbush? She's got our headlines now a bulletin for business.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and good morning. And yes, the International Monetary Fund has warned Ethiopia that its reform agenda under a $3.4 billion loan deal is facing challenges from declining donor support. This is despite the country meeting its key program targets. The IMF says although the country has implemented notable economic adjustments, rising risks such as resurgent parallel foreign exchange market and fragile security conditions could hinder progress and complicate debt restructuring efforts. Experts are encouraging African countries to increase investment in ministries that facilitate trade, such as the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition in South Africa. Executive Director at the African Leather and Leather Products Institute, Nicholas Mutungwe, says this is because globally, ministries of industry and trade have led industrialization. This as the continent looks to industrialization for growth. Speaking at the two-day manufacturing Indaba, Mutungwe says a policy to industrialize without financial backing is as good as none.
Each African country that has put up an industrial policy, it should also put a budget in the Ministry of Industry or in the Department of Trade and Industry. South Africa, fortunately, you already have that instrument under IDC. But most African countries, they don't put money, they expect investors to come from abroad. So for industrialization to take place, we need to put money in the relevant institutions, relevant ministries to support policy implementation.
The ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development says it expects the growth of the 15-member Economic Community of West African States Regional Bloc ECOWAS will inch down to 5% this year from 5.1% last year. The bank has linked this decline to the U.S. tariffs as well as to the duties being imposed on it in Africa, following the decision of 3 of its members to set up a rival alliance. The new bloc, known as the Alliance of Sahel States, includes Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, and has imposed taxes on goods from the rest of ECOWAS. The acting port manager in Durban, South Africa, Ngumbuzi Ben Mazwi, says they've spent more than $106 million on improving infrastructure in the country's busiest port over the past few years. This includes replacing cranes and other container handling equipment that have reached the end of their lifespan. This comes after the port experienced a huge backlog at the end of 2023, which continued into January last year. Ben Mazwi says this is part of the port's recovery program aimed at rectifying the lack of maintenance over many years. He says Bayhead Road, which handles over 13,000 container-carrying trucks every 12 hours, is also undergoing maintenance.
Currently, as we speak, we're busy with the Bayhead Road. The Bayhead Road, as you'll know, it is the artery of all the trucks that are going to the DCT, Durban Container Terminal, where most of our container volumes are based. So with that, you'll notice as well from a TPT point of view, as well the landlord as TNPA at the Port of Durban. We've got one of our terminal operators, which is TPT as well, putting a lot of equipment as well, buying equipment like straddle carriers to try to improve, the turnaround of the vessels.
The United States has said it will launch an investigation into possible unfair trade practices by Brazil. Relations between Washington and Brazil's left-wing government have deteriorated since President Trump took office. The BBC's Katie Silver has more details.
We've heard from the US Trade Representative Jamison Greer saying that they're going to be looking into Brazil's attacks on American social media companies and what they called unfair trade practices that harm American companies, workers, farmers and technology innovators. Now, certain things that we know that they're going to look into are things like digital payments, electronic payment systems, digital trade, access for US ethanol into the Brazilian market. It's all under what's known as Section 301, so it's different from those reciprocal tariffs. In terms of procedure, what happens now is we see this consultation period. We understand in September they'll make a decision.
And now taking a look at the indicators, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,529 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 24. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 58. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 5. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 56. Russia, 78 rubles and 1. India, it's 85 rupees 90. China, 7 yuan 17. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 86 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,333 and platinum at $1,403 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $68.88 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459 for Channel Africa Business. I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Cette peur d'un point de non-retour nucléaire suffit-elle selon vous à légitimer une telle offensive, Monsieur Talazi?
Absolument pas du tout. Cela fait plus de 30 ans que l'Israël crie haut et fort sur les toits où il veut se faire un que l'Iran serait à 1 an pour obtenir l'arme nucléaire. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 6 mois. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 2 semaines pour obtenir son arme nucléaire. Et curieusement, jusqu'à ce jour, il n'y a toujours aucune preuve que l'Iran a obtenu cette arme nucléaire en dépit des déclarations d'Israël et de certaines puissances parfois.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
The South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC Sport, brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the country's national rugby team, the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroes that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
South Africa's skies could soon benefit from a bold new partnership between higher education and the aviation industry. On Monday, the University of South Africa, UNISA, and Air Traffic and Navigation Services, ATNS, signed a memorandum of understanding aimed at reshaping air traffic management and aviation training in the country. Speaking to Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe, the ATNS board chairperson, Advocate Zola Majavu, highlighted the long-term goal to cultivate world-class aviation skills and drive research that meets global standards.
Firstly, I must express my gratitude to the leadership of UNISA for embracing our vision. Fortunately, they were also like-minded, so it didn't take long to convince them, but we need to express that appreciation. And I must also express similar gratitude to the team, my ATNS team, who has been working tirelessly behind the scenes. It's a 2.5-year journey, and we are hoping that it is the start of many good things to happen. But at the core of this was an acknowledgement by ATNS that alone we cannot do more we need to find ways of capacitating our aviation training academy, and also to make sure that the qualifications that we churn up do have some academic standing. And we did not look no further than UNISA, and fortunately UNISA also saw the point, and hence this particular signing of the memorandum of understanding. Of course, it is going to morph into other disciplines that we might not have thought of at the time of signing, but it's an in-principle agreement that we are joined at the hip, and we will make sure that we grow each other's respective brands individually and collectively. So it's going to be a lot of hard work. It hasn't been done, at least not in our times. So we don't have a model against which to benchmark. So it's all green fields for us. But I do believe that with the capital of intellectuals that we have on both sides, we should be able to leave a sustainable legacy behind.
How would you envisage the successes out of this partnership?
Look, success is a hype word. We would not go into this if we didn't believe in the authenticity of what we are trying to put together. But the success in this particular environment is not going to be measurable in the short term. You will begin to see the spin-offs maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, and then we build on that because we have to start right from grassroots. We have to start establishing an aviation museum, on the air traffic management side. We have to make sure that we mine as much data as is possible, and we must also make sure that the next cohort of air traffic controllers and related sciences that we are going to produce have the benefit of academia as well as the practical side of things, which is what currently the ATA can do. We now have the benefit of being complemented by a highly respected academic institution, and we can make mistakes together, learn from each other's mistakes, but most importantly, rely on each other's collective wisdom and strengths.
In the future, how would you imagine this will change the aviation landscape in South Africa, but also the continent of Africa, country or jurisdiction, when it comes to, because you gave a very good example about what happened in Qatar.
I think firstly, I'm a socio-political animal, so I cannot answer that question without reflecting on the historical past from which we come. You would never have thought that black people would play any meaningful role in aviation, let alone be thought leaders in aviation or managers in aviation. We are there now, thanks to the constitutional democracy. But we've got to prove ourselves twice as hard to deal with the doomsayers who think on account of our race and color, we are not good for certain disciplines. So that is the first stereotype that we need to deal with. Secondly, we also need to deal with the gatekeeping that was there. And for us to deal with that gatekeeping, we have to also go to the communities and bring them to the levels where they would be eligible to compete equally. For example, maths and science are the key subjects. And in some of our communities, for a number of reasons, our students don't seem to be performing that well. Not because they're stupid or they don't have the mental capital, but because of other socioeconomic reasons. So we as ATNS decided to go into those communities, especially your rural areas. And we convened what is called a winter school, which we have been doing for the past 3 years. So we bring students or learners from all 9 provinces within our limited resources, and we place a particular focus and emphasis on maths and sciences to enable them to pass with better grades so that they can then be absorbed into this aviation ecosystem. So we can't say we want to increase the numbers without enabling and capacitating those who've been marginalized to enter into the space. So we are taking it in small chunks. We recognize where the shortcomings are, try and address those shortcomings. We are not having grand ideas. We need to deal with the basics. That's why the successes of our initiative you will not see in the next couple of years. It's a long game that we are playing, because trying to deal with the historical imbalances of the past is not going to happen overnight. So it would be unfair to expect to see growth in the next couple of years. But we would be putting building blocks in place to get us to the future, so that those who come after us would have inherited a very sound foundation from which to build.
I think it's
Okay, so
outro.
That was Advocate Zolama Javu talking about the ATNS board and the collaboration that's taking place between them and UNISA in terms of South Africa's skies benefiting from this new partnership. That report by Michael Mbere.
Kodi mumadziwa bwino kuwerenga ndi kuyankhula chinyanja mumakonda ntchito ya wireless mumafuna mutagwira ntchito mdziko la South Africa nanga muli ndi mapepala okulolezani kugwira ntchito mu South Africa ngati muli ndi yankho la zonsezi ndiye kuti muli ndi mwayi ogwira ntchito kuno ku Channel Africa. Tumizani CV yanu ndi mawu anu kuno ku Channel Africa ku email ya newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Chonde ngati simunalandire uthenga kuchokera ku Channel Africa nyengo ya masiku 14 pambuyo potumiza CV yanu ndiye kuti simunasankhidwe. Channel Africa, kalilole wa Africa.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
Coming up after Rise and Shine on Channel Africa is On the Move with Benjamin Mushatama and Palesa Tao. So make sure you tune in for that. So what can we expect today? Benjamin joining us to tell us.
I always pick up one thing that we always talk about, and I think this first hour conversation is going to be a very, very funny one, but very, very interesting as well.
Funny as in haha or funny as in weird?
Odd.
In every way. No, but not really. We're going to be speaking about household chores and just the dynamics in the house, you know, especially when the caretaker is not around. Who's going to actually be responsible for what and how and when? Household chores when you guys are going on holiday without the nanny. Who gets involved? Because you know what? The premise is that it's always going to be the woman who's involved.
Yes.
But these days, we know the dynamics are completely different.
Do you know what's interesting? I mean, part of my life I grew up in the UK, so you don't have nannies.
Okay.
And our parents gave us chores, so everybody had a responsibility of the things that they had to do.
Yeah.
So it was always something that was there. But you're right. The nanny dimension does change things a little bit because when they're not there, things get disrupted.
Yeah.
Who then does what? For real.
There's families who go as far as hiring those
another
services.
one.
Yeah, another one. So when the main one is gone on leave,
there's a holiday nanny.
Holiday. They go to the agencies to hire somebody to come for like 2 days or something in a week.
Wow.
But I can't relate to that one at this stage of my life because I've got a teenager and an adult. And they spread the chores amongst themselves.
Yeah.
I'm just chilling.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But you know
that must be nice to be you.
It's very nice to be you.
But you
You'll
know
get
what's
there
happened
very soon, though.
is that my mom trained me to such a degree that I find myself making the bed in the freaking hotel, man.
Let's take it too far.
No, but you know what? You just can't leave things alone.
Yeah, that's interesting. Something that team was saying the other day, just yesterday when we were discussing it actually, they were saying like if you have siblings and we all like have different chores, there's gonna be one who's actually going to be like, you know, syndicating the chores to someone else and saying, no, you do this today. You know, I'm sick. I'm not feeling well today. No, you go ahead. And mommy will say, go ahead, because you can see this one is sick. There's always the sibling who's always sick, right?
And there's always a sibling who's quite clever who says,
I forgot.
Give me money and I'll do your chores for you.
There's also the one who just conveniently.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the funny part of it.
Yeah, no, it is funny in both haha and weird, actually.
Both of you, did you have chores when you were kids?
Yes, we had
all
to.
the time. I had to do all the chores because I was raised by my grandmother, right? So I had to do every single thing, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So that's it from us on the Rise and Shine team. We'll join you again tomorrow right here on Channel Africa from 6 a.m. till 9 a.m. My name is Asanda Beda, and I say goodbye.
And can I just say, I'm so glad that we have visual things because you dress so well today. It's lovely.
Only
outfit.
today. So all these other
all
times.
the time, every day. I knew that came out wrong.
Just kidding.
But we
Thank
love
you.
the outfit, partly because I'm a Manchester United supporter. And so
I see.
Have a great day, everybody. The news is next with Onelen Sinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And we look at your top stories this hour. Ethiopia arrests dozens of suspected Islamic State militants, and the US president prevents Ukraine attack on Moscow. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. Ethiopia has arrested dozens of suspected Islamic State militants who it claimed have been trained and deployed to carry out operations across the country. The National Intelligence Security Services says the 82 suspects were part of Islamic State Somalia affiliate, which operates in the semi-autonomous Puntland region. The Islamic State faction in Somalia has become an increasingly important part of its parent organization's worldwide network in recent years. With an estimated 700 to 1,500 fighters, Islamic State Somalia wing has grown in recent years thanks to an influx of foreign fighters and increasing revenue. South Africa's minister in the presidency responsible for state security, Kumbuzo Ntshabeni, says one of the country's risks identified